In any case, Fed subpoena Hasan Piker, Medea Benjamin over Cuba trips. Investigation part of a broader dragnet involving as many 40 American citizens who joined Marxist convoy to Havana. First on Fox, breaking news. Federal officials have served subpoenas to Marxist political influencer Hasan Piker and co-founder Susan Medea Benjamin as a part of a wider investigation into whether U.S. organizations and leaders violated U.S. laws and sanctions in supporting Cuba's communist regime, Fox News Digital has learned. We will free you, brother. Yeah, free me. Free me. Free me. I can't believe I'm saying that. But I'm about to be seemingly made an example of in America's I wouldn't even say creep towards fascism. America's galloping towards fascism. But we shall see. Great timing. The timing since the interview yesterday is crazy, though. Yeah, I saw a lot of like weird suspicions that, this is because of Elon Musk. Guys, that's not how this works, okay? The federal government doesn't if the federal government can do things at the mercy of billionaires like Elon Musk could have made a boss call at some point, but getting a subpoena from the federal government, that takes time. It's an administrative warrant, not dissimilar to the ones that ICE uses, so there's technically no real authority backing it from what I understand, but we'll obviously, I haven't gotten anything yet, so I don't know. I don't fucking know anything. But this is a long-term process. So this is not new, if that makes sense. If you think that this was like, this happened because of Elon Musk or something, well, no, that's not the case. Right? No, it's not a congressional subpoena. It's from the DOJ and the Treasury. The white boys got you, inshallah. Yeah. Anyway, we're going to get into that right now. We're blasting off. Hope you're lawyered up. Yes, I'll get lawyered up. Don't worry. Trump targets Hasan Piker. Someone wrote a script for you. Yeah, I saw. Hasan is on the stand. Senator Kennedy recounts Dr. Jihad's cussy lesson verbatim. Mr. Piker, do you think somebody making these remarks should be conducting humanitarian aid missions? Hasan smirks and lowers his finger. Fa! Rings out in the congressional hall. Acquitted. Yeah. Thank you, Themasius, for the playlist. God forbid a white boy get a little motion. Get Legal Eagle on your team. Guys, that's not how this works. I need like I need a team, most likely of First Amendment, like lawyers that are specifically lawyers that are experienced in federal court cases, possibly a lawyer for First Amendment related issues as well, and then also one that is adept and knowledgeable on sanctions and the Treasury and OFAC in particular. So it's not like no disrespect to Legal Eagle, who is a brilliant lawyer, I assume, but very different type of lawyer is necessary in this situation. So do not talk about what's going on before talking to a lawyer. I mean, there's nothing I have not had anything happen to me yet. Like, technically, nothing has happened to me. It's just Fox News is saying things are happening to me. So, and it's not like there's anything that I've done. But the unfortunate reality here is you don't really have to do anything for this government to decide that they want to do something with you. Let chat be your lawyer. What is this? You was never Muslim before. You was Shia. That's why you are brainwashed. You was never why you're brainwashed. Socialism led people to be poor. Even capitalism. Democracy is a fairy tale lie. Legal Eagle has a huge team of like 200 plus. He's not just one guy. Yeah, I know. Anyway, the liberals at the politics sub are defending you. Fed subpoena Hasan Piker, Medea Benjamin over Cuba trips. r/politics defending me is crazy. Meanwhile, Tucker Carlson interviewed Putin and did propaganda for him. Interviewed him in Moscow, Lamau, for going to Cuba. Didn't that Shirley fellow also go there? Why isn't he on that list? Yes, but see, Shirley went there to parrot the talking points provided to him by Trump. Nick Shirley thought he went to Cuba, but he just accidentally locked himself in a Miami airport bathroom for 45 minutes. Cuban Americans who like to make claims about government repression in Cuba are celebrating Trump going after Hasan Piker and others who were part of the convoy that delivered aid to Cubans. If you haven't seen their dishonesty yet, you might want to start paying attention. So let's get started. So I'm hit in the face with this text message, or this voicemail rather, from fucking Fox News producer, and it's a little bit alarming. It's a little bit shocking. I'm like, what's going on? Like, what do you? I'm a little bit confused because I'm like, why does Fox News know about something that apparently is going on in my life that I didn't know about? Right? Eric Garland. If Treasury OFAC bothers to send you a subpoena, it's not your week. I didn't know what OFAC was until season 2 of Friends and Neighbors on Apple. Just to be clear, it's not like you won the lottery. OFAC, yeah, I know what OFAC is. I'm very familiar with what OFAC is. You want to know why I'm very familiar with what OFAC is? Because we fucking filed OFAC clearances before going to Cuba. I've talked about it extensively, as a matter of fact. Our trip had to be OFAC compliant. This is bullshit. But yeah, the very same reason why Fox News got this story before anyone else, and the very same reason why the suspicions within the subpoena, according to Fox News, are ridiculous, is because this is very clearly another intimidation tactic from the American government. It is a way to silence dissent. It is a way to silence dissent. It's a way to actively tie up activists, dissidents alike. It's a way to try to have a chilling effect on speech. And some people, it seems, some likely and some unlikely people, have been cheering it on. We'll be talking about that in a second as well. You might need Zoran Magic for this one. Yeah, okay, dude. Yeah. I don't think Zoran Momdani is going to be doing that anytime soon, because I'm not a concerning incident that took place in the New York City region of America. You know what I mean? Highly doubt it. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he'll prove me wrong. I don't know. But anyway, so let's get started with the article, I guess. By the way, I said Fox News, federal officials have served subpoenas to Marxist political influencer Hasan Piker and Code Pink co-founder Susan Medea investigation into whether U.S. organizations and leaders violated U.S. laws and sanctions in supporting Cuba's communist regime. Fox News Digital has learned. Now, very clearly, they leaked this story to Fox News ahead of time because it's an intimidation operation. It's not a serious investigation into serious misconduct or anything. It's just a way to prod and intimidate and tie people up with paperwork in a costly legal battle and basically punish them. It's costly for the government too, by the way, but obviously we are, we're living in a unique, interesting time where the government loves wasting taxpayer dollars, as evidenced by the last thing that Trump did, the $1.776 billion slush fund. The government loves wasting taxpayer dime. In any case, Fed subpoena Hasan Piker, Medea Benjamin over Cuba trips. Investigation part of a broader dragnet involving as many 40 American citizens who joined Marxist convoy to Havana. First on Fox, breaking news. Federal officials have served subpoenas to Marxist political influencer Hasan Piker and co-founder Susan Medea Benjamin as a part of a wider investigation into whether U.S. organizations and leaders violated U.S. laws and sanctions in supporting Cuba's communist regime. Fox News Digital has learned. Piker and Benjamin are among those caught in a federal inquiry into whether activists who traveled to Cuba in March violated U.S. sanctions laws through the financing, coordination, or delivery of goods to Cuba, including potential contacts with the Cuban government personnel or entities on the island. The administrative subpoenas were sent to the pair by the Treasury Department's Office of Foreign Assets Control. So not only were we OFAC compliant, but I'm also doubly protected because I didn't just go to Cuba on a humanitarian aid trip. I went to Cuba with a journalism visa. So I actually got a press visa from the Cuban government as well. So this is not only an attack against, activists and people who want to do humanitarian aid work to countries that the United States of America is starving. But beyond that, I was there to interview people. I interviewed regular Cubans and ordinary Cubans in Cuban society. I interviewed doctors, and I also interviewed government officials. And not only is this not illegal, but it's also out there, you know? It's not a secret. If you go to my YouTube page right now, you can see it. It's actually right here. I went to Cuba. This is what I saw. Mini doc. I pretty much filmed everything that I did there, and I put it into this mini doc. Here I am interviewing the foreign minister. This is not illegal. This is actually very legal. So kind of strange. Also, one of the things that they brought up is really funny. The administrative subpoenas called Requests for Information, or RFI, seek financial, logistical, and communications information revolving around the trips the two widely bragged about making to the island nation in March with the delegations of the Nuestra America Convoy, or Our America Convoy, from a global network of communist sympathizers, activists, and influencers who brought supplies to the country's ruling Communist Party of Cuba, according to the sources familiar with the matter. The investigation is part of a broader effort by officials at the Treasury, State, and Justice Departments to curb malign foreign influence operations inside the United States, particularly activities tied to support for political violence, extremist movements, or acts the U.S. government classifies as terrorism. The scrutiny reflects growing concern among federal authorities and lawmakers over whether foreign actors and aligned organizations are attempting to shape American political discourse, mobilize activists, and sow discord and normalize rhetoric that could encourage violence or undermine U.S. national security interests. Ken Klippenstein believes that this is a tie into the NSPM7, the whole counterterrorism initiative that they have. According to the American government, it's actually terrorism to be anti-fascist. It's terrorism to be anti-capitalist. And now I guess it's terrorism to send humanitarian aid, to deliver humanitarian aid to an island nation that we have starved and caused tremendous suffering to. Incredible. So yeah, I mean, what can you say? It's just pure evil, I guess. According to a Fox News digital investigation, Singham has pumped $278 million into nonprofit groups that have pushed pro-China, pro-Cuba, anti-U.S. narratives and street protests from 2017 to Code Pink co-founder Jody Evans, who's also being investigated for her role in the March trip. Code Pink received $1.3 million from Singham after he married Evans. This is Jody Evans, who I took a photo with. They love this photo for some reason. I don't know why. She's one of the co-founders of Code Pink. She's wonderful. And it's like all of this investigation, at least the high notes, make it seem like they just saw stuff on like New York Post and on Twitter and were like, oh, this must be valid. In mid-March, organizations in the Singham Network, from the Venceremos Brigade to People's Forum, a hub for communist cause in New York City, were leaders of the Nuestra American Convoy, which included an estimated 650 delegates from 33 countries and 120 organizations. The organizations included Democratic Socialists of America, a U.S. nonprofit that promotes Piker as a headline member. By the way, that's so funny. The DSA does not promote me as a headline member. But, fuck it. We ball. The investigation of the Office of Foreign Assets Control is part of a broader dragnet that includes as many as 40 American citizens who joined foreign nationals, including a controversial Brazil activist, Tiago Avia, who are part of a global network of anti-U.S. Marxist, communist, and socialist. Additional subpoenas are expected. The administrative subpoenas mark a serious escalation by the Trump administration against a far-left nonprofit activist network that has spent years defending communist regimes from Cuba to China, while presenting its work as humanitarian aid, anti-war organizing, and solidarity with people oppressed by the imperialist U.S. colonial power. Yeah, because that's what it is. It's an anti-war initiative. Code Pink is an anti-war initiative, an anti-war movement that wants to stop American wars. Yeah. Badge of honor means you touched a nerve. In my case, they never actually served the subpoena, and I bet your lawyers can successfully move the quash. Hopefully. There's more, though. The story gets even dumber. As reported, a Fox News digital investigation has identified 145 U.S. nonprofits and activist groups with $1 billion in collective revenues that Justice and Treasury Department officials are investigating as a part of a wider influence campaign by Cuba's communist regime and foreign actors. First of all, Cuba doesn't even have $1 billion. Like, this is why it's this is why it's insane, but also kind of funny in a weird way. Whenever people are like, "Oh, I bet you're getting paid by the Cuban government, bro." They don't have money. With what money? You think they got money? Are you fucking insane? It's one of those things where I can't tell if people are just like so used to only at advancing causes for monetary reasons, like they just can't possibly fathom the idea that someone would want to genuinely help the Cuban population, genuinely demand that we stop, killing Cubans with our economic terrorism, right? Like, what money do they have to give me money? You know what I mean? It's very stupid. Anyway, according to public statements, it's believed that delegation members stayed at a hotel the U.S. State Department has put on a Cuba restricted list. Oh, this is what's really funny. This is not a part of the subpoena, I don't think. This journalist is just adding this on. I haven't received the subpoena yet, so I have no idea. But let me tell you why. Because that's not real. We didn't actually stay at the wrong hotel. That was just something that people made up on Twitter, except for an American citizen who recently did violate OFAC and stayed at a hotel that America does not allow American citizens to stay in. It wasn't me, though. It was Nick Shirley. Literally, the hotel that Nick Shirley was in was actually on the state sponsor of terrorism list. Okay? We obviously didn't stay at a hotel we obviously didn't stay at a fucking hotel that the American government has made illegal to stay in. Nick Shirley, on the other hand, whether because he's a fucking idiot or because, it doesn't really matter what he does because he's basically an agent for the state, did stay in a hotel that was illegal for him to stay in. I personally think it's idiotic. You should be able to stay in whatever fucking hotel you want to, by the way. I think it's a totally ridiculous restriction imposed upon Americans and Americans only, mind you. Right? It's hilarious that the mouth-breathing rightoid accidentally violated U.S. Treasury rules, yet they're targeting the scary Marxists for literally following the law. Yeah. But yeah, if this is the investigation, that's hilarious. This is just like headline chasing. The federal government got clickbaited by Twitter headlines. Yeah. Federal government targeting people because they mobilize activists, sow discord, and normalize rhetoric, as suggested here, would be a blatant violation of the First Amendment. So yeah, not only is this this is very clearly a First Amendment violation. And I don't know if this is the one that breaks the dam, where they just like try to figure out trumped up charges to like actively prosecute people who've done nothing wrong, mind you, but they just do this to finally tackle fucking the First Amendment. I don't know. When's the court date? I don't know anything. I don't know anything because I have not received a subpoena. Okay? I need you to understand something. I have not received a subpoena. I don't know. There is no information that I have received. Wasn't most of what you did? Yes, everything we did in Cuba was cleared with the State Department, or not the State Department, the Treasury. This is also coming from that very same regulatory body. This is coming from the Treasury. Treasury is the one that handles sanctions, ridiculous or not. You have to be personally served. So not only is this bad reporting by Fox News the most basic detail, defamatory, but they're directly outed themselves as collaborators. Guys, of course they're collaborating. What do you mean? Yeah, yes. The whole point of this is to get this article out there and to basically tell people like, oh, you got some opinions about the Trump administration? Oh, you want to aid the starving children that we are starving? The Trump administration is starving? Well, that's illegal now. Okay, we're going to make that illegal, or at least we're going to try to make that illegal. The whole point of this is to leak this to Fox News ahead of time to start the process of threatening people. U.S. law imposes broad restrictions on financial transactions involving Cuba, primarily through the Cuban Asset Control Regulations, Administrative Office of Foreign Assets Control. Those rules generally prohibit unlicensed travel-related transactions and exports of goods or services to Cuba, with limited exceptions for journalism, humanitarian projects, and educational programs and certain activities meant to support the Cuban people. Again, did they sneak taking these photos of you? Yes. I talked to some people, and I suspect that they got creep shots of me in the morning as Kaya was peeing before I go to the gym. And then they also got they got creep shots of me as well, which was really fucking annoying. That means that they just parked outside my house all the way back in motherfucking January, like months ago, and have just been taking photos of me, which is definitely weird. It's a violation of my privacy, but it is what it is. Piker, one of the most influential political streamers on Twitch, has built a massive online following with a mix of Marxist politics, anti-American commentary, and inflammatory statements that have repeatedly drawn public backlash. On March 10th, Piker posted a photo of himself on Instagram with the message, "I'm going to Cuba." In an Instagram post from the trip, Singham's wife, Evans, smiled widely in Havana, wearing a red and white Palestinian scarf, or keffiyeh, around her neck, while standing beside Piker, who looked seriously into the camera. On a live stream this week, Piker said that the Justice Department's indictment of Cuban leader Raul Castro was a sham with no legal standing, designed to create a pretext for escalating U.S. pressure on the island. Piker argued that Trump is acting like a playground bully. By the way, no notes. I cooked on that. Every single thing that I said there is correct. Fox News Digital recently observed Piker outside his Los Angeles home, escorting his dog Kaya outside of the house for a bathroom break early one morning. Kaya, a large breed dog that is a mix of Tibetan Mastiff, Chow Chow, and St. Bernard, has been the beloved subject of an online campaign dubbed Free Kaya over allegations Piker trained Kaya with a shock collar that transmits painful stimuli as a part of behavioral training. At one moment, Piker silently stood over Kaya, gestured with a finger for her to return to the house after relieving herself. Later, Kaya was observed being walked and driven by a woman leaving Piker's home. This is insane, right? By the way, once again, this proves many different things that I have been saying conclusively, which is that, Kaya goes on walks while I'm streaming. And it's really funny that people just wouldn't believe me at all. And now there is this, it's in the fucking paper. Okay. I like that they framed it like I was doing something unbelievably sinister. I like that they are framing this as like something sinister where I pointed to the house. Benjamin has made her mark as an activist gadfly who stages media spectacles at congressional hearings, defense industry trade conferences, and the homes of government officials, yelling in invectives, chants, and slogans, branding herself as anti-war, but actually running a pattern of messages denouncing the U.S. and uplifting communist and authoritarian regimes of the Islamic Republic of Iran and the Chinese Communist Party and the Communist Party of China, Communist Party of Cuba. Fox News Digital recently observed Benjamin outside her colorful home in Washington, D.C. with her partner and fellow activist, T. Barry, who accompanied her on the trip to Havana. What? Someone also noticed the creep shots disprove that you use a shock collar. It doesn't, guys, this has been discussed a million times over and over and over again. Yes, not only does Kaya get numerous walks, but yes, she doesn't have a shock collar. It doesn't even matter. You think my fucking haters give a shit? It was never about the truth, okay? Anyway, Piker's been criticized as saying America deserved 9/11, a remark he later said it was poorly phrased, and for past comments about Representative Dan Crenshaw, Navy SEAL veteran who lost an eye in Afghanistan. More recently, critics, including Representative Richie Torres, by the way, shouts out to all the Democrats who are up my ass and have been up my ass, the Israel First Democrats. Thank you. You are giving ample, you're giving ample permission. You're giving ample permission to the fascists that want to take away not just my rights, but your rights as well. So, see you in the camps, I guess. More recently, critics, including Representative Richie Torres, have accused Piker of amplifying anti-Semitic rhetoric after October 7, while Piker has denied anti-Semitism and said his criticism is aimed at Israel, not Jews. The larger group under scrutiny includes Isra Hersey, the daughter of Representative Ilhan Omar, according to sources, with investigators examining whether Omar may have funded her daughter's travel to Cuba. Omar didn't respond to an early request for comment about her daughter's trip. Piker, Benjamin, Singham, Evans, and Code Pink did not respond to requests for comment. Yeah, it's because you literally fucking sent me a request for comment and then immediately published. Not to say that I would probably give Fox News a comment anyway, but according to sources, the Office of Foreign Assets Control is also investigating Code Pink's DC coordinator, Olivia DiNucci, a former Division I basketball star from Emerson College in Boston. Her unassuming girl-next-door persona often gains her entry into coveted spaces, and then she disrupts with loud theatrics. She joined a convoy led by the Brazilian activist Avila. A lot of this, by the way, does still have a lot to do with Israel. It's not just about Cuba, but it's also about Israel as well. Why bother reading someone's comment if you're just going to immediately tell them that it doesn't matter? Wait, what? That's what you're upset about? Like right now? I can't even begin to explain to you how hard you must lock in, my friend. Please. Anyway, yeah. The Office of Foreign Assets Control can impose civil penalties under a strict liability standard, meaning the government does not have to prove intent. The Justice Department, by contrast, generally must show that a defendant willfully violated the law in a criminal case, often through evidence of concealment, evasion, or knowing participation in prohibited transactions. In a long live stream on Saturday, Piker interviewed another influencer, Ashley St. Clair, about having a baby with billionaire Elon Musk, railed against Trump, defended the communist leaders of Cuba, and Free Associated about other topics in the news, including a shooting outside the White House, decrying the chaos in America. It's fucking terrifying, he said. Good. Our citizens should be fighting for America, not against her. Sometimes I think people forget you're a real person with real things happening to you. Yes. I've read through all the SEC state exceptions for Cuba travel. The main concern is whether you maintain a schedule consistent with full-time work in journalism, humanitarianism, etc., which you obviously did, and we can see that, given you were live and made a documentary in like 4 days. Yeah. So... just finished watching your Breath of the Wild playthrough. Had no clue you were a political commentator until news on X that you've been subpoenaed. So you know how you said, once they come for you, that we're cooked? Does this mean we are now in fact cooked? We'll see. But the author is a psycho, it seems. Democratic Socialists use the rose in their graphics, branding, and protest signs, symbol of their ideological belief. Let me break it down. Hasan Piker is one of the most prominent. First of all, not a member. Not an official member, at least. Maybe an honorary one, but not an official one, but fine, whatever. I've long maintained the position that I am, org agnostic, although I love the Democratic Socialists of America the most, for sure. A DSA political candidate, Oliver Larkin, expressed support for Hasan Piker and Medea Benjamin in the face of subpoenas from Treasury Department from their March trip to Cuba in possible violation of sanctions. Cuba is a one-party state, the Communist Party of Cuba, Partido Comunista de Cuba, PCC, the only political party in Cuba. Democratic Socialists of America is a key member of the transnational network backing the Communist Party of Cuba. So do you guys see what's going on here? They're trying to get everyone tied up. Like they're trying to get every like left activism network in this country. Like all matter of like activism, whether it be socialist, whether it be anti-capitalist, all this stuff. She said, hashtag free Kaya. Hello, Hasan the Hun. Surrender your ego and accept one of these offers for a new home for Kaya. You curse at her all the time. You were clearly frustrated with Kaya. She isn't a potted plant. Let her live. This is a Fox News reporter, dude. This is the Fox News reporter that wrote this article. That's incredible. That's so crazy. She isn't a potted plant. Let her live as a dog. Free to roam. A home. Move, run, meander. Hashtag free Kaya. Ironic because her literal fucking reporting, if you can call it that, shows that she is meandering and going on walks and going to parks and shit. It's like genuinely insane. She's reposting AWK 2000. Indeed, Hasan Piker is drawn to the attention of federal authorities for possibly aiding and abetting a communist regime. Then he has drawn the ire of dog lovers for allegedly using a shock collar on his cute dog Kaya. It's a public service to draw attention to both issues. It's unbelievable, dude. What a time to be alive, you know? But yeah. To which I said, of course, to this article, I said the American government would rather try to criminalize delivering aid to a country we've starved than punish the Epstein class. Max Blumenthal says, an unintentionally hilarious article by Zionist nutbag Asra Nomani to justify the House GOP's McCarthyite fishing expedition. Among the infractions committed by Hasan Piker and Medea Benjamin are staying in the wrong hotel in Havana and this. To which I replied with, we stayed at the right hotel, by the way. The government got duped by a fucking viral Twitter post. I'm losing my mind. Isn't that crazy? If that's one of the suspicions, that's literally not a thing that happened. It's just not a thing that happened. What is this? Even if this were true, the difference is that Hasan regularly condemns the Armenian genocide while you worms long live for the latifundia days. What? Yeah. All of my sweatiest ops are also having a fucking field day with this, apparently. Okay. Reminder that red shirts and brown shirts going at it is actually super beneficial for libs and democracy, and it would be the stupidest thing in the universe for libs to intervene. To which Cuss says, this is just explicitly, first they came for the communists, by the way. Literally, there is a very famous poem by a German Lutheran pastor that starts with, first they came for the communists, and I did not speak out, for I was not a communist. Then they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out, for I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. And then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak out for me. That's literally the major takeaway, is that it doesn't stop and end with your perceived ideological enemies, which I shouldn't even be your ideological enemy. If you are a liberal and this is a fascist administration opportunity, this is your moment to fucking buck up, okay? To nut up or shut up. This is your opportunity to say, you know, it's gone too far. Maybe I'm not the biggest fan of Hasan. We have our disagreements, but this is unbelievable. This is ridiculous. This is madness. And yet, these guys don't comprehend exactly what's happening. They don't understand what's taking shape in front of their eyes. They think this is a great opportunity to attack their own personal online internet enemies, one-sided beefs half the time. I think it is perhaps the greatest demonstration that a lot of these guys on the internet are simply led by these cults of personality, which is ironic because they say that about me all the time, but they're just led by cults of personality that don't really care about politics at all, don't really care about organizing at all, don't really care about the things that they ostensibly care about, or the way that they present themselves as caring about certain things like liberal values even. They just have personal vendettas. And unfortunately, many of their followers also just advance those personal vendettas. And that's what's really interesting, because this is one of those instances. This is a turning point, right? This is a turning point where our rights are all under attack by a fascist administration, by a fascist government. And it's very clear that there are a decent number of self-identifying liberals on the internet that come from these communities, whether it be the sex pestiny community or whether it be bad empanada as well, who are not really invested in any sort of real political movement or even undermining the Trump agenda, and not even doing grievance politics necessarily, but just like doing grievance against individual Twitch streamers that they don't like. And it's very strange that their fan base advances those unbelievably selfish desires without even realizing that they're not doing anything remotely political. They're not doing anything remotely political at all. They think they are. They think this is political activism, but all they're doing is advancing the interests of a content creator that they watch, that they're a part of a cult. It's crazy. I'm uncommitted to standing with the podcaster Hasan Piker. He has done more than be lesser evil of the two evils against Trump if he wants to earn my support. First of all, this is an admission that you would vote for Donald Trump over me. Okay? I know you're trying to make a point, a really bad point, regardless. This idea that, like, I deserve to be punished by the Trump administration because you have perceived me engaging in some kind of slight against Kamala Harris when I dared to criticize Kamala Harris's failures in the campaign and warned that she was going to most likely lose, right? And they're all hitting the same line. I'm uncommitted on Hasan getting subpoenaed. He needs to stop acting like he's the lesser of two evils and instead be the good. Remember, these are all liberals. These are all liberals who claim to hate Trump. This is supposed to be their number one thing. The only thing they're supposed to hate is Donald Trump, right? They don't really even care about the policies all that much. As long as a D is doing the same exact kind of policies, they're fine with it. But they hate Donald Trump for, whether it's because of the way Trump moves, the way Trump operates. It doesn't matter. They're supposed to hate Trump. And they can't even do that right, okay? This person says, does Hasan Piker think Kamala Harris would have done the same? Just wondering. To which I responded with, you'd cheer it on the same. You'd cheer it on just the same, big dog. Clearly. I think this proves that the Trump admin are the true agents of liberalism and saviors of centrism that the Democrats have consistently fallen short of being. You need to begin to moderate your radical opinions. Let Trump win again, which is good because he's going after you, but bad because he's mean to the goat Schumer. Yeah. And so many of these guys are just Israel first too, which is very strange, you know? Like, even fucking third way at least understands that, like, openly cheering this on would be a bad look for them because they're adults. They're fucking adults. They're adult enough to understand that this is a horrifying precedent, right? Meanwhile, you got fucking the ultras to my left on the bad empanada side celebrating this, okay, saying like, oh yeah, Trump administration should actually arrest this person because he's a real Zionist, which Trump, slave of Israel, is not the Zionist in this equation. I am, right? From their perspective. They're trying to justify this that way. So ridiculous. And then, of course, the anti-Trump Sexpestany is saying, reminder that red shirts and brown shirts going at it is actually super beneficial for libs and democracy, and it would be the stupidest thing in the universe for libs to intervene. Famously, fascists always stop at the edge cases. Famously. Yeah, another... Hasan Piker says Hasan Piker as he's dragged away by Guantanamo's... dragged away to Guantanamo by Trump's secret police. Like, look... Yeah, this is amazing. According to public statements, it is believed that the delegation members stayed at a hotel the U.S. State Department has put on a Cuba restricted list as businesses directly tied to the communist government of Cuba, designated a state sponsor of terrorism. We stayed at a legal hotel. This whole thing seems to stem from an erroneous viral tweet. Know who did actually stay at a sanctioned hotel? Nick Shirley. We know because he broadcast from it and told everyone he stayed there. Yeah. Anyway, but all of these, like, very annoying centrists on the timeline, whose only thing that they hate, whose only thing that they fucking supposedly hate is this guy from the Manhattan Institute thinks the subpoena is because of your wads of cash comment.
He's been living.
Yeah. It's not illegal. It's literally not illegal to bring cash and give fucking, and purchase things in Cuban businesses. Or even give it straight up on the fucking street if you want to give it out to people. That's literally a normal tourism function. There's a humanitarian purpose beyond it as well. None of this is illegal, guys. I always found it odd that when Hasan got off the plane in Cuba, one of the first people waiting to take a selfie with him was Jody Evans, Neville Roy Singham's wife and co-pig co-founder. I don't know. Maybe because she was one of the people that was on the fucking... She's a part of the Code Pink organization. And Code Pink was also there. Like, they were also, you know, putting... I don't even know the exact details, but they were also part of organizing the trip together. What? I know you usually let the work of rallying the orgs you support, but in case they try to bring you to court, you should definitely consider coordinating with orgs you've been pushing and try to publicly mobilize your community and not only your defense, but use yourself as an example that the admin is hunting down real pro-American voices like Medea. Show them that your emotion goes beyond being a Twitter power user that's buddies with Elon's exes. Dude, sometimes I welcome rotting for the rest of my life in a fucking federal penitentiary rather than having to deal with long-term community members who have, like, unbelievably snide remarks even in this fucking moment. Like, what the fuck? Dude, what? You're giving me advice on something that you don't know if I'm doing or not, okay? And then also you have to slap me with a fucking bat. Like, all you technically do is just... You know, hang out with Elon Musk's exes, dude. Why don't you do some real fucking organizing? Well, bitch, I did. Okay? And guess what? The government was like, we're throwing your ass in jail. Fuck you. Okay? What do you want me to do? Literally, people are so funny. They'll be like, oh, Hasan, all you do is fucking sit at home. You asshole. You don't do anything. You sit at home and you collect checks. You say, subscribe to the Piker Broadcasting Service. And you get your legion of adoring fans to subscribe to your Twitch stream, right? All you do is sit at home. You don't do shit. I go out and I do shit. Then they say, oh, you're performative. You're performative. You're LARPing. You're LARPing. You wore a shirt. You wore an expensive shirt while you were doing things. If you were doing real things, the government would be after you. Now the fucking government is after me, and they're like, well, the government's after you, and it's good, actually. Well, at a certain point, you have to realize, like, maybe this gripe has nothing to do with what I'm doing or what you think I could be doing more of, and instead has everything to do with the fact that you just have been geared into despising me from all of the fucking negatively framed clips all over the goddamn right-wing algorithms. Hasan's new pharmacist, thank you for the 10 tier on gifted subs. Jaeger Larson, thank you for the 5 gifted subs. Anyway, very acadb. Thank you. It's very, very strange, dude. Like these guys are straight up saying like it's not criminal, but it should be criminalized. Basically, that's what it is. Any chance that that unhinged Fox News author made it up? Probably not. But again, I don't know because I haven't received a fucking subpoena, so I have no idea. I don't know. So there is that side of the story as well. Not an ideal way to add to your lore, I know. You can't pay for this kind of publicity, fam. Okay, guys, I'll be honest. I prefer not to have this publicity, okay? If you think that this is just like, it's good. I know some of you are looking for a silver lining in this situation, but this is not good, okay? There is no world where having to deal with like a federal case is actually a good moment. I would much rather not have to deal with this at all, okay? But yeah, Austerity Stuff says, them leaders need to speak out against this gross dictatorial abuse of power and the law to chill dissent. And I'm not talking simply progressives. Yeah, hopefully. The TMZ moms thinks it's because you had Elon's baby mama on. They see on your side. Yeah. But yeah, that's where we're at. Problem is the Dem leadership hates the left too. Yeah, but this is one of those moments where they actually do have to say something because they understand that. I mean, who knows? Who knows? Because guess what? While this is happening, Face the Nation had Josh Gottheimer on alongside Mike Lawler to talk about how there's a condemnation bill on me. That's what happened a couple hours ago. CBS News Face the Nation looked at a situation where this right-wing fascist government is engaging in unprecedented actions against the First Amendment and decided to bring on one Democrat and one Republican congressperson to also attack that very same person that's targeted by the state. They didn't hit me up. They didn't hit me up to be like, hey, what do you think about this? This ridiculous attack against you and against this humanitarian aid flotilla, against the First Amendment. Like, what do you think the impact is here? What do you think the goals are? They were like, no, actually, let's add more fucking fuel to the fire. And let's have Mike Lawler and Josh Gottheimer on Face the Nation to talk their shit.
I do want to get to
which is not surprising. I mean, it's CBS, right? It's ZBS, let's be real. But it's just like, it's so clear. It's so clear what the fuck is going on. I mean, this is collaboration. This is collaboration. The reason why they're doing it is because, again, they don't like that I talk shit about Israel. They don't like that I am a loudmouth, a rabble rouser, and they want to fucking lock me up and throw away the key.
Issue of anti-Semitism, because we wanted to have you both on together because you are working together the rise in anti-Semitism in the U.S. Congressman Gottheimer, I understand the value in lawmakers drawing attention to some of the really vile incidents that we have seen in this country lately. The stabbing of a Jewish man on the streets of New York, the shooting at the Capitol Jewish Museum here in Washington. But what can Congress realistically do about this problem?
Well, we know since October 7th and Hamas's terrorist attacks, anti-Semitic incidents in the country are up 70%. Mike and I, in both our states, have some of the top numbers of anti-Semitic incidents in the entire country. It's totally unacceptable. And what's happening now is it's far too often in our politics on both sides, right? Whether it's Hasan Piker, who's a streamer on the left, or Candace Owens on the right, who are campaigning with candidates around the country, actually encouraging some of the most vile anti-Semitic language, like Hasan Piker, who calls
in your
Jews
party
pig dogs, Candace Owens, who denies
in your
the
party
Holocaust. We've got
in your party, you're a Democrat. In your party, it's an anti-Trump initiative. Oh, I'm sorry that we're putting up fighters to fight for the Democrats to advance this cause against Israel, which 90% of the Democratic base agrees on. They're on my side, Josh, not on yours.
Candidates in both sides who've embraced them, who've made insane comments, like the woman in Texas this past week, a Democratic candidate who said that Jews should be in camps. You've got Dan Bilzerian in Florida, who said we should exterminate Jews. None of this should be acceptable. And Mike and I, whether it's through the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act, which we passed out of the House last Congress on defining anti-Semitism and have introduced again this Congress, or both of us condemning Piker and Owens in legislation. Both of us believe deeply that we need to stand up to this. And Mike's been very outspoken, as have others, and our leadership on both sides needs to make it very clear time and again that you don't stand with people like Owens and Piker, and they're not welcome in our districts, and none of this language is acceptable either. I think it's very important.
Congressman Lawler, why do you believe that fringe candidates like the one that Congressman Gottheimer just mentioned sense that there is a market for that sort of hate to begin with? Is there some kind of permission structure that has been created in both of your parties?
Well, I don't think there's any question that anti-Semitism...
Dude. First of all, it's ironic that he's talking about how I'm such a bad... I'm such a malign force or malignant force in American politics. But then also at the same time, he brings up Maureen Galindo, which is not a candidate that I've endorsed. So that doesn't really make sense, does it? Like, if this is what I like, I would probably endorse her, right? Well, I didn't. It's just it. These guys don't have a fucking leg to stand on. They're just chirping. The problem is, even though the overwhelming majority of the population don't believe the chirp, don't agree with the chirp, and actually despise this kind of chirping, it still doesn't matter, right? Because the machine... Yeah, by the way, they mention Candace Owens very little in this conversation. Have you guys noticed that? They literally say Candace Owens is a Holocaust denier and move on. As though that's not a far, far bigger offense than what they try to hit me with. And then the rest of the conversation is just about me, which goes to show the point here is not to fucking disavow Candace Owens. That's just to save face. They want to attach this bill to someone who is actually anti-Semitic so they can call me an anti-Semite. And they're not even interested in the actual anti-Semitism at all. They're more so interested in me, a person who is not fucking anti-Semitic, but is being called one because I'm anti-Israel. Because these guys do not give a shit about anti-Semitism. They care about anti-Zionism.
Has been, condoned by folks across the political aisle. And from my vantage point, it is something that all of us have a responsibility to push back against. Regardless of party, these candidates are coming forward. They feel it is okay to blame Jews for whatever ills there are in the world. Obviously, I experienced just last week Rand Paul's son screaming at me in a bar because he thought I was Jewish, when in fact I'm Irish, Italian, Catholic. And regardless of whether I was or I wasn't Jewish, the idea
he has apologized
that
for that,
people feel
correct?
it is okay to engage in...
I like that she's correcting him on Rand Paul's son, but no corrections are issued when Josh Gottheimer is like, Hasan Piker is an anti-Semite. You know? That's cool. I'm glad that you're correcting the record on Rand Paul's son. He's like, well, he's apologized for it. Oh, okay, nice. That's cool. Because I'm noticing a trend here. Have you guys noticed? I'm noticing a trend here where the actual instances of anti-Semitism are just brushed aside. The actual instances of anti-Semitism are just brushed aside, and everybody pisses their fucking pants about someone who's objectively not anti-Semitic, fights against anti-Semitism, but is uncompromisingly anti-Israel, anti-Zionist. Interesting.
That. He did ultimately, but the idea that people feel it's okay to engage in that type of conduct is shameful. And I think what Josh and I are trying to do in putting this resolution forward is to say enough, and to say to both parties, we have to police our own. We cannot allow this. We cannot support candidates who engage in rank, vile anti-Semitism. The Jewish population is about 2% of the United States, and meanwhile, it's over 50% of the hate crimes that are experienced. Something's got to give.
Got it. I do want to.
It is pretty crazy that they're just like, yeah, he called all Jews pig dogs or something. That's not the case. Like, that's not a thing that happened. Okay. You just, again, made that shit up, but it doesn't matter. Yeah. Tiny nation, tiny nation. You don't police Trump at all? Fuck off, Mike. No, Mike loves Trump. What do you mean? Mike is begging Daddy Trump to come in and defend Mike's chances at re-election.
He fucking hates his sons. I think it's literally because they're ugly as shit. They're losers, but also they're ugly as shit, and I think Trump hates that.
The Trump White House is going after left-wing political influencer and Twitch streamer Hasan, and it is absolutely ridiculous. So in this video, I'm going to break down what happened, speculate maybe why it happened now, discuss the right-wing influencer.
Oh God, I hope Rational National doesn't think that this happened because I had Ashley St. Clair on the broadcast, because this kind of stuff doesn't happen overnight. These 3 Fox News guests say they want Cuba to become a second Israel. Oh God. It's not just that you're an anti-Zionist. They recognize that Democrats and young people are against Israel, but they see you campaigning with candidates who are anti-Israel and they are winning their races. Yeah, that's what it is. I think that's what is like genuinely pushing. These guys hate fucking democracy so much, dude. They hate democracy so much. The democratic wishes of the public can never be met, okay? The wishes of the majority can never be heard, all right? And they do a very good job of subverting democracy all the time. AIPAC does a very good job at this. They dump tens of millions of dollars. Look at what happened with Thomas Massie. Now, there is a counter to that faucet, that barrage of misinformation that actively subverts the democratic process. Now there is a platform for people who have these sorts of opinions. A platform that is competitive, maybe not as sizable or as vast as the entirety of the mainstream media, but a platform that is capable of reaching out to a lot of young voters and tying those young voters to politicians that actually want to listen to the demands of those young voters, right? That's what the problem is here. It's not even just about Cuba, okay? It's not even just about Israel in general. It's about a collection of corporate interests. For the longest time, corporations could purchase goodwill and influence by buying ads on mainstream media. And most of the people would get their information from mainstream media. It was a consolidation, right? It was all coming from hand-selected, totally gate-kept, and oftentimes reliable vectors of communication, right? At first, there was a couple channels on TV. Then there were more, but there was still a selection process that you didn't just like arrive in front of a camera randomly overnight. You elevated in your career by going through the ranks, maybe playing ball with your management, saying certain things, not saying certain things, right? So there was a flow. There was a control over the flow of information that the public got. The public received information from what they perceived to be a diverse array of news outlets that would, at times, when it's necessary, totally consolidate around a singular frame. We saw this with the justifications for waging an illegal war with Iraq, right? Back in the day, New York Times, as well as all the right-wing newspapers and all the liberal newspapers, were creating consent. Were creating a permission structure to go and invade Iraq illegally. And it worked to a certain degree. And it's not just about waging foreign wars. It's also about protecting corporate interests. There's a reason why the overwhelming majority of Americans want free healthcare, socialized medicine, and yet they never receive it. And yet you never hear that perspective in mainstream outlets. It's not just about Israel. It's not just about Iraq. These are foreign policy issues that are currently top of mind, but I'm using that as an analog. I'm using that to deliver a broader point because it goes beyond that, right? It goes beyond that. It's everything. It's labor rights. It's Medicare for all. It's anything that actually hits centers of profit. It's any institution that paywalls certain amenities, certain things that are necessary for survival. The media has has had a very good time, quote unquote, educating people this way, right? Making sure that the masses are subservient, making sure that the masses feel like change is not happening for one reason or another. Now, because of the internet and because of independent media, people can get information in real time from sources on the ground directly, and massive platforms such as my own that are not accountable to any corporate interest, that are simply accountable to their own audience and accountable to the truth. And some don't follow through on that promise, of course, but I do, can just cut through that noise. And there's clearly a market for it. There's clearly a demand for it. And that's a threat. That's a threat to very powerful entities. It's a threat to billionaires who want to keep the masses sedated. However, beyond that, I've done the unthinkable. I didn't just stick to this platform. I started aiding insurgent campaigns, okay? I didn't just stick to this platform. I'm very pragmatic, and I started working within the ranks of the Democratic Party, or within the primary system within the Democratic Party, candidates who are anti-Zionist, candidates who place the interests of the population over the interests of the interests of corporations and the interests of corporate profit. And they started winning. Okay? That is terrifying. That's terrifying for a lot of powerful entities. That's why I keep repeatedly saying the Trump thing, which is that they're not coming after me, they're coming after you. I'm just standing in the way. And it's true. If I just stuck to my own corner of the internet and I didn't actively work with, insurgency campaigns within the Democratic Party's primary system and find some success there, they wouldn't give a shit. They would just say, oh, he's just another guy who's irrelevant. He's just truly trying to farm as much revenue as possible. If I was the guy that my haters claim that I am, many of which are simply projecting their own moral courage or moral clarity, for the record, they're all mercenaries, so they assume I am just the same. But if I was that grifter, this wouldn't be happening. It just wouldn't be happening. We are now at the precipice of 21st century McCarthyism. This is pure McCarthyism. The U.S. government is persecuting prominent left-wing anti-war voices for daring to challenge the empire's murderous illegal blockade of Cuba. This comes at a time when numerous reports say the U.S. military is preparing for a potential war in Cuba. This is fundamentally at odds with the spirit of America. This is fundamentally at odds with the First Amendment. It is completely unconstitutional and completely and utterly immoral and ridiculous. Michael Fusco Art, thank you for the 100 gifted subs. Thank you. And what's crazy about it is it's not going to stop with me. It's not going to stop with me at all. So I'm shocked. I'm genuinely shocked that there would be so many people, K-hivers and people on the internet. They're not regular libs, by the way. These guys don't have a base. The pro-Israel ranks are definitely overrepresented on Twitter. The pro-Israel Democrats, if you were to just look at the internet, if you were to look at Twitter, for example, you would think that 90% of the Democratic Party's base is Israel first, okay? You would arrive at a very wrong conclusion. You would think that every anti-Zionist is an ultra. Anyone and everyone that's critical of Israel is also a third worldist. And that the Democrats themselves, like Democratic Party's base of support, the voters, are all Israel first. That's what you would think. Which is interesting because sometimes the ultras are the ones who are making that argument. Right? And yet, in the real world, if you were to ask the average liberal, if you were to ask your parents, if you were to ask, people that you see at No Kings rallies and whatnot, how they feel about this, contrary to the celebrations of some of these unbelievably annoying, supposedly liberal-minded people, they would be horrified by it. In the real world, if you were to encounter a lifelong Democratic Party voter and ask them, hey, I know you don't like Donald Trump. You say you don't like Donald Trump. Donald Trump and his administration is trying to actively prosecute a humanitarian aid mission while we're in the process of destroying this country known as Cuba. Most liberals would hear that and be horrified. They'd be like, what the fuck? That's unacceptable. Not the liberals on the internet. This is it. Have fun with that, buddy. And it's me talking about Israel, saying Kamala Harris and Donald Trump would one-to-one do the exact same shit in Israel, which is true. And they love posting this clip. And it's very obvious that I'm like not talking about everything. I have said over and over again that, of course, there's very significant differences between Kamala Harris, or even marginal differences that are significant for real life consequences between Harris and between the Democrats and the Republicans. But this is not one of them, right? This is unfortunately not one of them. And the fact that we are trying to change that, and they're this upset about it, because like I'm trying to change it. Many of you in this community are trying to change that reality. We're trying to make the Democratic Party an get people elected that will actually push for an arms embargo on Israel, that will push for accountability on Israel for doing a genocide, right? But this guy basically proves that point. I said this clip was about the Democrats and Republicans' unipolarity on Israel, and it's the only thing you care about, which is why you're currently defending the Trump admin trying to jail dissidents for delivering humanitarian aid to a country we're starving. He proves the point. Liberals that post this clip prove the point that they only care about Israel, like straight up. They only care about Israel, but they don't want to say it out loud. So they try to masquerade as though they're just unbelievable Kamala Harris defenders. Like they really love Kamala Harris. They really love the establishment wing of the Democratic Party, and that I was actively arguing against it. I was actively arguing against the Democrats and not saying Kamala Harris needs to communicate better how different she will be than Donald Trump on a litany of different issues, including but not limited to Israel. But this is proof. If you're Israel first, you will celebrate this decision. Yeah. Leftists trying to rally support for liberals they've spent their entire career attacking. No one expected you to stand up to Trump's fascist regime. That's what we've been saying, and you're proving the fucking point. I voted against Trump. Hasan urges viewers not to. I never urged my viewers not to vote for Kamala Harris, by the way. And that's a lie, but it doesn't even fucking matter, right? I never endorsed Kamala Harris. The only person I urged people not to vote for was Donald Trump. There was simply no way for you to twist an argument away from those simple facts. Sorry. Hasan urged viewers not to vote for Trump every day of the 2024 election. He just wouldn't tell them to vote for Kamala Harris when she was unwilling to call Israel's actions in Palestine a genocide or commit to ending aid to Israel. He even voted for Kamala and told people that openly. Like, none of it matters, because here's the thing. I've gone through this cycle already. I didn't endorse Kamala Harris. I refuse to do so. Okay? But here's what's important. In the past, I had endorsed Joe Biden. In the past, I had endorsed Hillary Rodham Clinton. And liberals still yelled at me, saying I was a Bernie bro. And if you asked them why back then, they would say it's because you weren't excited enough in your endorsement of Hillary Clinton or Joseph Robinette Brandon. Right? So it's actually not about endorsements or voting at all. Actually, sincerely, we're worried about the pain that Trump is causing, as I was, and I still am. They would have demanded that the Harris campaign actually take this shit seriously, right? But they don't care. One of the first things that a lot of liberals did on the timeline after Donald Trump became president was openly salivating at the prospect of getting their Latino neighbors deported. And if you recall back then, what did I say? I said, this is ridiculous. You are no better than the fascist Republicans if you actually agitate and actively lean in to the deportations regime that the fascist Republicans are implementing. If you are anti-fascist, You should not aid and abet the fascist regime. You should oppose it, even if it's someone that you dislike, even if its victims are people who you personally believe legitimately played a role in the election of Donald Trump. They were, of course, referencing Latino neighbors that had undocumented family members who had voted for Donald Trump, and there was plenty of them, right? That's what they were talking about. They were like, oh, I know my neighbor, one of my neighbors is undocumented. Their son or their father voted for Donald Trump, and I'm going to call ICE on them. That's what liberals were saying. For me, when the admin came after Jimmy Kimmel, what did I say? When the admin came after Jimmy Kimmel, I said, look, I don't agree with Jimmy Kimmel, but it doesn't fucking matter. It's irrelevant. This is a violation of the First Amendment. This is having a chilling effect on free speech, because I could understand that an administration that was attacking Jimmy Kimmel would just as easily throw my ass in prison, you know? But a lot of these guys, at least on the internet, don't see it that way. They think they will be spared. They think that they won't be sent to the concentration camps, and they're wrong. They are wrong. So you might be excited at the prospect of your favorite cult leader's least favorite content creator, me, potentially rotting in a federal prison. But you'll be there by my side in short order. I might be going to the camps, but you're going to be there too, buddy. This dude posted another 9-second out of context.
So much for the protest vote against Kamala just made it worse. This is such a...
Hasan Piker wouldn't be able to say comma. What? Hasan Piker wouldn't be able to say if Kamala would do the same. Curious, he keeps turning Democrats to save him, though. I love that they're literally like, this is 9 seconds now.
Regardless of the hypothetical reality where Kamala Harris would not be as bad as Donald Trump, which we have no proof for, regardless of the
unbelievable. That's not even a full sentence. Who the fuck would believe this?
Stupid attitude to have, because one, there's no inclination that Kamala Harris the only thing that we knew about Kamala Harris was that she was literally doing the same exact thing that Joe Biden was doing, even if it actually harmed her electoral chances. Okay, that's number one. And number two, I maintain the position that Donald Trump was going to be worse than Kamala Harris. You're coming to someone who literally openly recognized that this was going to happen. I warned of this happening, and at the time, Kamala Harris, or at least any liberal that wanted to win, could have been like, yeah, we're going to actually put an end to this. We're going to put a stop to what Joe Biden is doing. And they chose not to. Okay? So saying that, like, oh, so much for the protest vote, especially when Kamala Harris lost by wider margins than the people that voted for someone else, is just idiotic.
That's the clip. That's the reason why it's 9 seconds long. Because if he were to play a 1 minute length clip, if he were to play the entire clip, many liberals would be very reasonable. They would go, wait a minute. He's not saying Kamala Harris is worse than Trump. He's not saying that Kamala Harris and Donald Trump are the same at all, as a matter of fact. He's saying that Kamala Harris did not do her job to communicate that difference adequately to as broad a public audience as possible. And what's also ironic about this is that these guys are trying to actively get liberals to be in favor of the Trump administration's attacks on free speech, which will end up harming them too. But even if I literally did say Kamala Harris fucking sucks, she's the worst president, Trump is better than Kamala Harris, which I never did because I don't believe that. But even if I were to have said that, would it be appropriate for the Trump administration to put me in jail? That's the question. That's the question people have to ask themselves. I don't think so. There are plenty of people who I don't fuck with at all, who I'm at odds with, who I'm ideologically against, from Jim Comey to Jimmy Kimmel, all the Jims. And I have defended them. I've defended them over and over again when the Trump administration decided to do insane things that put them in harm's way, that tried to, take their jobs away or tried to put them in jail. I don't like fucking Jim Comey at all, because I understand the dangers of eroding certain safety nets. I understand the dangers of eroding certain defenses that the average citizen has against the government. There are many redeemable aspects of American life and even in the Constitution. This administration is tackling those redeemable aspects. This administration is tackling those phenomenal aspects of American theoretical democracy. Marked safe from being a disciple of a guy who would cheer on a Zionist fascist regime going after people who aided a communist country because I have interpersonal beef with one of their targets. If this doesn't make you rethink who you support, then you're fully beclowning yourself. You will twist yourself in the pretzel saying supporting Dems entryism makes you a Zionist, but supporting Miriam Adelson's bitch does not. Yeah. I hate posting him, but you even defended Sex Pestini's free speech?
Covered by free speech? Yes, I do. Everything that he's saying here is incisive deliberately. But what he's very clearly trying to say is that, like, Donald Trump needs to lower the temperature. That's what he's trying to say. It's ridiculous for liberals to...
Yeah. They will never offer me the same fucking charity, which, for the record, I don't even want. Okay? You are going to jail, you little bitch. Smiling, crying. Okay, chatter. We all know my distaste for Hasan. He literally has demanded Trump deport me in the past. But do we really trust the regime that has lied constantly and used lawfare to silence any political enemy to launch an actual investigation into anything? They'll just define anything vaguely liberal as terrorism next. At least this fucking dumbass is smart enough, possibly because he's Canadian. I don't trust them, but Hasan would never go to bat for liberals who get oppressed by the Trump regime. He should not receive our help. Yeah, our help. Bitch, you have no motion anyway. Okay? This is me trying to help you save yourself. Okay? This is me trying to pull you back to the fucking real world, dumbass. And yeah, they're wrong. I have defended. When Donald Trump tried to go after Destiny, I even defended that. When Donald Trump and his administration went after, I defended Jimmy Kimmel. When they went after Jim Comey, I defended Jim Comey. Because I have fucking principles. It's so ironic that these people legitimately don't have any fucking principles and spend a good deal of time claiming that I do not, and trying to clip things in a way to suit that propaganda purpose. Don Lemon too, exactly. They can't comprehend someone having a moral foundation that they truly abide by, a code of conduct that they truly abide by. It's virtually impossible for them to comprehend this. That's the difference. But fear not. This is just what you're seeing on the internet. And not even all over the internet, because even r/politics, which is comprised mostly of neoliberals that usually despise me, are still very much aware of how damaging this is for free speech. Okay? The overwhelming majority of liberals, when they see this kind of thing happening, they don't like it. Okay? It's just the people that are chirping, that have the loudest voices online, specifically on Twitter, that have this kind of attitude, and they have actively radicalized themselves with radical centrism, radical liberalism, if you want to call it that, into believing that they have the numbers, into believing that, like, the party's base, the Democratic Party's base of self-identifying liberals agree with them, especially when it comes to Israel, and certainly when it comes to things like this. They're wrong. They're hysterical. They're in this very strange, unbelievably right-wing echo chamber on Twitter that, of course, is going to turn me into a major villain. It's Elon Musk's platform. He fucking despises me, right? And these guys have seen it on their algorithms so much that they're defending the Trump administration. They're actively supporting the Trump administration, not just harming a person that they perceive to be an enemy, but harming themselves. Because when I swing from the gallows, I won't be there alone, okay? You will be there. They'll put you up there too. This is not about radical commentary. This is not about communism. This is not about socialism. This is about dissent. Dissent against a fascist government. It will not stand. Do you understand? Dissent against the fascist government will not stand, which is precisely the reason why they will punish any and all matter of dissent, which includes you as well, unless you decide that you yourself are a fascist too. There's a funny tweet. I'm on Chuck Schumer's comms team. We're workshopping a Hasan Piker belongs in jail, but under a Democratic president's administration press release. We're on our 37th draft, and someone's placing an order for Chinese. Yeah, Malcolm X. As long as Uncle Sam is against you, you know you're a good man. Malcolm X to Fidel Castro. I was never your biggest fan of Hasan because I personally don't like how you sometimes flaunt your wealth, but do appreciate. Chatter, I promise you, I don't flaunt my wealth. Okay? This is what I mean. I don't flaunt my wealth. Other people will go to unbelievable lengths to try to identify how much each individual article of clothing I've purchased without even knowing where I've purchased that article of clothing or how I've acquired that article of clothing or whether it is at odds with my worldview at all to create this idea that I love flaunting my wealth. You think I wanted my house to be doxxed when I purchased it for myself and my family? No, of course not. This is what I mean. Like right now I'm wearing Zegna pants. They're very, I'm sure they're vintage, but I'm sure when they were first sold, they were pretty expensive. I got them for $30. But in the future, if they figure out what brand of pants I'm wearing, they'll say these were $700 pants. I got it for $30. Secondhand, thrifted. But it doesn't matter, right? Zegna. Ermenegildo Zegna. Yeah, sounds fancy, like Obama's fancy mustard.
ABC News Chief Washington.
Anyway, let's get to the latest Iran deal. Trump is saying it's been largely negotiated. I told you, once the ink is dried and the troops have pulled out, I'll believe it. Until the last moment, I will not believe it. But there are some signs that we're moving in the appropriate direction. Now, the reason why I say that is because the pro-Israel side, the Israel firsters in America, and obviously the Zionists in Israel are crying. They're crying up and down the timeline.
And correspondent Jonathan Karl will be hosting This Week later this morning. John, good morning to you. Great to see you. So President Trump says a deal with Iran has been largely negotiated. Still no official response from Tehran. But what are your sources telling you about how close a deal could be and what's actually included?
Well, it's not the...
They backtracked already? Oh, God. Israel came in again, I guess.
First time that the president has said we're close to a deal. He said it over and over again and it hasn't come to fruition. But this does seem to be a genuine inflection point. My sources in the region say that a deal is very close. The only question is whether or not the Iranians sign on. The president did a call with our allies in the region yesterday, and they were largely encouraging him to approach this deal, to make this offer to the Iranians. Here's what it is, though, Whit. It is not an end to all the conflict in terms of how to approach the nuclear program. It opens the Strait of Hormuz. The Iranians stop blocking the strait. The U.S. lifts the naval blockade, and then it leaves a period of time, I'm told 30 to 60 days, to negotiate those issues that still have not been worked out about Iran's nuclear program.
Yeah, so still some critical discussions and phases ahead. John, I do want to turn to the proposed $1.8 billion fund for President Trump's political allies. It's very controversial, running into serious opposition, including from Senate Republicans. So what happens next with this?
Look, this was open revolt on Capitol Hill, particularly in the Senate. You had a meeting that Senator Ted Cruz described as one of the most contentious meetings that he had seen in all his time in Congress, where Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche went up to defend this fund in a private meeting with Senate Republicans. And according to Cruz, the senators, the Republicans, many of them were actually yelling, screaming at the acting attorney general, saying this was entirely inappropriate. What's next? Well, they've gone on recess. Congress needs to pass this this border security bill that Republicans can do solely on Republican votes, but that is now in doubt because there will be amendments offered to eviscerate this fund, and if those come up for a vote, you will see a lot of Republicans support it. So President Trump still calls it a top priority for him, but there is massive opposition among Republicans on Capitol Hill.
Okay, we'll see how it all plays out. John Karl, you'll have a busy show coming up later on This Week. John interviews Representatives Tom Suozzi and Brian Fitzpatrick about their bipartisan bill to stop the DOJ's anti-weaponization fund.
President Trump and White House officials say they are close to a deal with Iran to end the conflict in the Persian Gulf and reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Let's bring in Fox News Chief Foreign Correspondent Trey Yingst with the very latest in Tel Aviv. Hello, Trey.
Yeah, hey, Shannon, good morning. We're getting new details on a memorandum of understanding between the United States and Iran that is expected to be announced soon. A regional source who reviewed the agreement telling Fox News, quote, the deal states that U.S. forces will stay in the proximity of Iran for 30 days. The context here is that it signals for Iran the military option remains on the table if nuclear issues agreement is violated. The source added that as part of the deal, Iran will receive oil sanctions waivers. Iran will also have frozen funds and assets released worth billions of dollars. This is contingent on the broader deal being verified. Now, on Saturday, President Trump held a call that included leaders from Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the UAE, Egypt, Jordan, Turkey, and Pakistan, aimed at reaching a broader understanding. A separate regional diplomat told Fox News the call was very positive. Good progress is being made, adding that regional leaders were supportive of the progress and of the breakthrough President Trump achieved with the talks. Overnight, President Trump announced that an agreement with Iran has been largely negotiated. The president indicated there are still final aspects and details being discussed. President Trump also spoke last night with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, but we've not yet heard any public statements from the Israelis. The issue of Iran's nuclear program remains a key topic of conversation and is expected to be discussed in the weeks ahead. Shannon?
All right, Trey, we know you will be on every detail. Thank you so much for the updates.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.
For all the false starts on an end to this war, something more definitive, if still cautious, from the U.S. Secretary of State this morning.
With regards to the straits and with regards to a process that can ultimately leave us where the president wants us to be, and that is a world that no longer has to be in fear or worry about an Iranian nuclear weapon. And so I do think there's some good news on that front, but not final news on that front.
Stronger still from President Trump, posting, an agreement has largely been negotiated. Final aspects and details of the deal are currently being discussed and will be announced shortly. In addition to many other elements of the agreement, the Strait of Hormuz will be opened. But this afternoon, Trump appearing to put the brakes on again, saying the U.S. blockade on Iranian ports would remain in place, that both sides had to take their time to get it right. If signed, the deal would reportedly see the strait reopened for shipping without Iranian tolls, potentially over a 30-day period. But a senior Iranian official today
having creatine. And then y'all tweet saying nuclear enrichment is a no-no and Israel has a right to bomb Lebanon. Yeah, I'm drinking my Metamucil. Even my biggest haters are defending me. Okay, good. At least some. This actually shows like the varying depths of madness on Twitter. I mean, this guy despises me. He's literally written extensively about how much I cape for communism and whatnot. At least he still also maintains the level of intelligence not to come across like a psycho. Ah. Ugh. Yeah, it seems like Israel. This is why I said there was, look, this is why I said this deal was promising, mostly because the reason why I said Israel is this is promising is because Israel was chirping quite a bit. Okay? Israel was chirping quite a bit, and that Israel only chirps when America is actually nearing a deal. Like when they're actually close to closing. And it's so, and that's such a, like, that is such a significant problem that the Iranian envoys openly communicated yesterday by their state, by their state news media, Fars News, that America and Israel actually found a decent arrangement. However, Israel is trying to spoil it. They openly stated that. Right? Trump asked Middle East leaders to sign a peace deal with Israel after the Iran war ends. Okay? U.S. demands capitulation. Iran's not agreeing? No. I think you're wrong. I think Iran got what it was looking for out of this deal, which meant capitulation from the American side, and then Israel came in and said, you can't do this. So if this deal falls apart, it is absolutely because of Israel. It is not Lebanon that is emerging as a weak link in the memorandum, but rather Israel. Once again, Israel refused to be bound by any regional ceasefire and wants to include clauses that allows it to turn the ceasefire into Swiss cheese. just as it has in Gaza and in Lebanon before. It wants to render the ceasefire void of any meaning. So far, the Iranians are standing firm, not just because it needs to defend its standing amongst the Axis and not appear as having betrayed them, but also because the entire agreement won't be worth the paper it's written on if Trump, even before the agreement comes into effect, starts to cave to Israeli pressure. No U.S.-Iran agreement will be useful if the United States cannot rein in Israel. This will be a test for Trump, America first or Israel first. If you recall, for the last 86 days, what have I said? After the second week, when Iran came out with their 10-point plan for a long-standing ceasefire, I told you, I weighed the priorities here, and I weighed the most difficult elements of this deal. And the least cession that Iran would give to the Americans, if you recall, was restricting their enrichment capabilities. This is not, regardless of the American side's maximalist demands on this issue, this wasn't that consequential because they had already conceded on it. And the only reason why the nuclear grade enriched uranium even exists in Iran was simply so they can have leverage to get sanctions relief down the line. And that's what happened with the JCPOA. That's clearly what they wanted to do. They said yes to that, even to the maximalist demands that the American side was making before Operation Epic Fury was launched through perfidy 86 days ago. Okay? And I told you that the highest priority, or the most difficult to achieve concession from the American side, would be Lebanon. And I told you it wasn't about Lebanon at all. And I've had conversations with Trita Parsi on this broadcast as well. It's not that Iran truly loves Hezbollah or sees them as Shia brothers or because they think that this is a war for survival or anything like that. I mean, I'm sure that's part of the motivation, right? But the reason why Iran wanted Lebanon to be a part of this deal was because that would mean America would have to forcibly restrain Israel because Iran demanded it. And if a deal was reached of this sort, which I still think it will, it would be a major strategic defeat for Israel, as Trita also agrees. Here is his analysis. I address Trump's pending deal with Iran and the meltdown of the warmongers in this piece. But while Israel supporters openly attack Trump, Israeli officials may keep a lower profile given Israel's elections and Trump's ability to hurt them politically in Israel. But make no mistake, if a deal is reached, it will be a major strategic defeat for Israel. And Israel knows this. That's why they're chirping. That's why its Hasbara agents are chirping. That's why its biggest defenders in America were losing their minds last night. Because this would mean that Iran was capable of forcing America to restrain Israel. Something that America has not done since October 7. It's that simple. Israel's two wars have, paradoxically, strengthened Iran's deterrence posture, exposed Israel's inability to confront Iran without overwhelming American military backing, and inflicted incalculable damage on America's global standing and aura of military supremacy. At the same time, support for Israel within the United States has eroded dramatically across nearly every demographic group except older Republican voters. Most importantly, sanctions relief would liberate Iran's economy from decades of constriction and gradually shift the regional balance of power away from Israel and its vision of a greater Israel. For precisely that reason, Israel will almost certainly do everything within its power behind the scenes to sabotage the agreement before it becomes irreversible. Okay? Oh, thank you, Foundation for Defending Democracy, says Harrison Berger from American Conservative Magazine. Iran war could add billions of dollars in interest payments to U.S. debt. Government borrowing costs have reached their highest level since 2007 after 3 months of the conflict. Yeah, this iteration, this last conflict is entirely because of Israel. Okay? Straight up. Anyone that doesn't recognize that is either a fool or lying to you. Okay? Hold on. Ali Hashem reporting on the major holdups. Oh, yeah, here. Ali Hashem from Al Jazeera English says, less than 24 hours after optimism emerged around a possible Iran-U.S. memorandum, negative vibes are already surfacing. A well-informed Iranian source tells me there are signs of U.S. retreat on two central issues, the mechanism for unfreezing Iranian assets and the scope of a ceasefire in Lebanon. I think even unfreezing Iranian assets is more doable than restraining Israel. Maybe I'm wrong, but if you recall, I said that unfreezing Iranian assets would be a tough concession for America to eat. But the most difficult one would be to restrain Israel. Do you think Trump will rein in Israel? I think he has to. I just don't know if he is capable of doing this for one reason or another. Can you clarify? Israel doesn't control the U.S. It's the other way around. They're the U.S.'s greatest vassal state. No. For one reason or another, we have now let Israel take complete control over our foreign policy initiatives in the Middle Eastern region. That's it. I'm sorry, but it's not like this is, it's ridiculous to not recognize that. I'm Mr. Israel is the unsinkable aircraft carrier. Obviously, America controls Israel. Israel is America's attack dog. But this last iteration with the Trump administration has been different. It's different. Trump 1 was different too, but this is very different. Okay? Trump 1 was a significant shift. Trump 1 represented a significant shift where we went from allowing Israel to play a very important advisory role in our Middle Eastern endeavors to one that basically started driving the vehicle of our imperialism in the Middle East. We moved the embassy to Jerusalem. The Abraham Accords were kickstarted. All this stuff that was new. That was unique. And then Biden came in. And Biden was also an ultra-Zionist. And Biden never reversed any of the Trump decisions on Israel. Not even a little bit. And then October 7 happened, and we saw the depravity, the immorality of the Biden administration on this issue. The bear hug strategy. Many people criticized it, but Biden stayed the course. Fake red lines were issued over and over again. Israel violated them. Israel humiliated the Democrats, and the Democrats were seemingly nowhere to be found. They never restrained. Did they have the power to restrain Israel? Of course they did. Of course they did. They always do. They still do to this day. It's still a one phone call style situation. Then Trump 2 happened. And Trump, especially in the second term, is even weaker and therefore more compromised than ever before. And the proof here is exactly what has taken place in the last 86 days. You think Benjamin Netanyahu didn't always want to invade Iran? Of course he did. Numerous former presidents came out and said the same. Hillary said the same. Okay? This was always a goal for Israel. This was always the final goal for Israel. They've always wanted to destroy Iran. And yet no American president prior to Trump 2 specifically, had ever taken that leap. Part of the reason why they didn't take that leap is because they knew that what's happening currently was a very realistic scenario. Okay? Obama said as such, straight up. If you don't want to take my word for it, take Obama's word for it. If you trust him more than me, he literally said it. We've always had advisors and minders and people who are perhaps a little too invested in Israeli foreign policy, maybe more so than American foreign policy, deeply embedded in the blob. Okay? And America's goals in the region have almost always been in cooperation with Israel's goals in the region, right? They've never really truly been at odds with one another, or even if Israel actually bites off more than it can chew, it's not that big of a problem for America. America can solve it, right? Because we're the big bad military machine. We can come in here and we can fix it. But there are certain red lines that no American leadership prior to Trump 2 had ever taken. And that red line was invading Iran militarily or attacking Iran in the way that we did in cooperation with Israel. This created a divergence of interests, a significant one that everyone around the world could see. It's a very important distinction, which is why I say this is different. Israel absolutely controls the American foreign policy vehicle as it stands currently. Israel is the reason why we are bleeding the rest of the world right now. Israel's the reason why we are bleeding, here in the United States of America with unprecedented inflationary crises, with gas prices skyrocketing for everyday Americans, and all of the other things that we purchase that we get from the Asian markets that are screaming bloody murder because of the energy crisis that they're experiencing. Again, because the Strait of Hormuz is blocked. Why is the Strait of Hormuz blocked? Well, because we attacked Iran. Interests are currently at odds. Israel has, and I've said this from the start, a very different set of goals with Iran than the United States of America has. Does the United States of America like the idea of a destabilized Iran? Absolutely. But as the hegemon, the U.S. has a very different level of international responsibilities, one of which is to ensure that trade continues, to ensure that this delicate system of global capital that we have designed is unimpeded. And if you can't militarily defeat Iran, as we have seen, we can't militarily defeat Iran, you have to negotiate with Iran. And I think America recognizes that. Plenty in the intelligence community recognize that. Neocons recognize that. That's why Robert Kagan is screaming bloody murder. I mean, these are people who have spent their entire lives demanding that we attack Iran at the behest of Israel or at the behest of American interests, to attack Iran and to defeat Iran and to destroy Iran. So why are they all now saying, you got to stop? You have to stop. We are bleeding far too much. It's because it's true. Iran defeated us. Iran defeated the United States of America. And Iran didn't just defeat the United States of America. Iran defeated the United States of America in this most public way possible, in an incredibly swift manner. It was expeditious, it was fast. And America recognizes that, or at least our intelligence community recognizes that, our military leadership recognizes that. They recognize that this would be dangerous from the start. And yet, Israel was able to push Trump into doing this. Perhaps with faulty intelligence, perhaps by leaning into his own personal ambitions, saying, this is going to be just like Venezuela. Perhaps they really greatly overemphasized how much Iran was trying to assassinate Donald Trump and goaded him into doing it. Whatever, right? But it's very clear that his own guys, our generals at Central Command, and our military analysts and our intelligence analysts warned Trump of this imminent failure, this threat of waging war with Iran and what that could do to the global energy markets and what that could do to American force projection capabilities. And now we are watching it. We're watching it unfold. So America's lost and Iran has won. What comes next is America recognizing that loss. And I think Trump does recognize it now. He wants to end this. He doesn't like how long this has taken. He went to China. He got, he had to make major concessions to the Chinese government already. I think it's $14 billion, if I'm not mistaken, of arms purchases that were supposed to be shipped over to Taiwan are no longer going. I mean, that's a huge concession that he gave to Xi Jinping. It's a huge deal. That is a recognition of American weakness. So there is definitely a recognition there. Trump recognizes it. And he wanted to pack this up. He wanted to end this. And yet, Israel still came in, it seems, in the last moment and is trying to sully the deal. Just open with saying this stuff, says Curtis Mills, the executive director of American Conservative Magazine, the anti-war conservatives, and they are actually anti-war conservatives for the record. They're certainly against this war. A major military achievement for Israel. The United States is not even perfunctorily referenced. Mark Dubowitz, one of the FDD guys, FDD, Foundation for Defending Democracy, for those of you who don't know, is an Israeli cutout, okay? Openly saying the pending deal looks bad. I hope final terms are far better than the leaks suggest. That said, this remains a major military achievement for Israel. Iran's ballistic missile program, a severe strategic threat to Israel, has been significantly degraded and set back for years. Now, that's a lie, but it doesn't matter, right? That's just cope. But the very fact that an American foreign policy lobby is openly saying Israel's military objectives have been achieved is fucking awesome. You're an American, aren't you? One of your guys is currently sitting in the American negotiations team. And yet here you are saying the quiet part out loud, that this is a strategic victory for Israel, and that's all you care about. How interesting. Wait 1 second. Since the fall of the USSR and pan-Arabism, Iran easily is the greatest backer of Palestine and the greatest enemy of Israel. If Iran bent the knee to Israel like the Arab states, sanctions would be relieved tomorrow and they could breathe easier. Do you think Iran genuinely views itself as an anti-imperialist vanguard in the Middle East? Is that its motivation? Maybe not necessarily an anti-imperialist vanguard. I think there is that element to it. Yeah, I mean, that's what the Islamic Republic is. That's what the revolution was. Like the Iranian Revolution was that. It was like the inception of the Islamic Republic comes from an anti-imperialist revolution against Western superpower. So yeah, I think that is something that motivates them, certainly. But outside of that, I mean, they look at what's going on with the Gulf states and they don't like it. They don't want to be like that. So they want to maintain sovereignty. Iran is so primarily invested in sovereignty that at times they haven't even fucking gotten allegiances from countries that are opposed to the United States of America to the degree that they easily could have secured. I'm talking, of course, about the USSR, or even in the last decade with China, right? They want their own sovereignty. They don't want to create like long-standing allegiances with other countries that would then cause them to be under the influence of another pole in the world. They want to maintain sovereignty above all else. Okay, they're very proud. They're a very proud nation. Now, things might change with the current IRGC leadership, with allegiances to China. I don't know. I can't speak on that, but they have always wanted to have zero dependencies. They'll have some strategic partnerships with Russia and even with China, but ultimately they want very little dependencies. They want to be self-sufficient. Ironically enough, it is very Jusha in some ways. Ending the Hormuz crisis through diplomacy is a position the entire region and most of the world agree on, except for Israel. Even the UAE joined other Gulf states in pushing for this, despite growing tensions over recent months. Probably wasn't a good idea for Netanyahu to publicly embarrass Abu Dhabi recently. All that said, the biggest challenge for Trump continues to be whether he can get Netanyahu under control or whether Netanyahu and his friends in D.C. will instead seek to control Trump. The time for Trump to show actual strength is now. By telling Netanyahu to shut up and shove it, most of the world would applaud him. Yeah. UAE is a joke country, yes, but it's still important. Even joke country thing to do. Hold on, I have to send this text message. 1 second. Did MBS move away from Israel? They do say pride comes before the fall. Sometimes I feel like these conflicts are individual nations destroying their own personal power to attack others. Sure. Our deal is the opposite of Obama's, but nobody has seen it or knows what it is. It hasn't even been negotiated. I don't even know if it's real. If I make a deal with Iran, it will be a good and proper one, not like the one made by Obama, which gave Iran massive amounts of cash and a clear and open path to a nuclear weapon. Our deal is the exact opposite, but nobody has seen it or knows what it is. It isn't even fully negotiated yet. So don't listen to the losers who are critical about something they know nothing about. Unlike those before me who should have solved this problem many years ago, I don't make bad deals. President DJT. Incredible. Anyway, if you want to understand what's like spoiling the fucking deal, they say it's 95% done. Senior administration officials say the Iran deal is 95% done, but still several days away. 2 essential phases. 1, open the Strait of Hormuz to all commerce with zero threats or tolls. 2, dust for dollars. Iran must give up all nuclear dust in order to receive any dollars. At a minimum, gas prices will likely plummet in the coming days. Admin believes more moderate voices have taken power in Iran and want a deal. Radical elements in the IRGC are often using pro-Iran reporters and outlets to work to deal with inaccurate propaganda. It's ironic because that's what the Iranian side is saying. The Iranian side keeps consistently mentioning that, 1, they are united, and 2, that America has given major concessions to their demands, and that Donald Trump is just trying to save face and to not listen to him, and that even the American mediators have told the Iranian side not to listen to Donald Trump and his tweets and his statements. One of the biggest challenges with getting a deal done, per senior admin, is it often takes days for Iran's leaders to respond because they are in hiding and often communicating with the equivalent of carrier pigeons. It's humiliating. We haven't been able to open the Strait of Hormuz with the world's most powerful military, but it's actually them that are humiliated here somehow. They're so scared. That's what it is. Unbelievable cope. Incredible. Top advisor to Iran's supreme leader, U.S. is trapped with Hormuz. Top advisor to Iran's supreme leader, U.S. is trapped with Hormuz and will never return to America or before. Mohsen Rezai, who commanded the IRGC for 16 years, the longest tenure in organization's history, and currently serves as military advisor to Iran's supreme leader, Mojtaba Khamenei, told Tasnim News that Iran has secured a historic strategy of victory historic strategic victory against the United States as negotiations continue toward a deal to end the war. For the first time since World War II, America's superpower status has collapsed. America, after the Ramadan War, will never return to the America it was before, and we have brought about America's decline in the Middle East. This is true, by the way. This is not just like propaganda. The U.S. military designed the recent battle to last in the most pessimistic scenario, 15 days, and deployed forces accordingly. After failing in the early days, they sought a unilateral ceasefire to rebuild their strength, but the Iran strategy prevented their escape, and the aggressors became trapped in their strategic snare in the Strait of Hormuz. If the war expands from the Persian Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz to the Sea of Oman, Bab el-Mandab, and the Indian Ocean, it will take on vast, uncontrollable dimensions. The enemies, understanding the end of this dark corridor, fear entering the war and have turned to the negotiating table. Iran has strong legal and security justifications for its sovereignty over the Strait of Hormuz. This management is not to block free trade, but to prevent insecurity in military campaigns. I suspect that it's currently a little bit more difficult for Iran to also transit their and ship out their weapons to Ansar Allah, which is part of the reason why the Ansar Allah have been far more restrained, because I assume, again, total speculation, but the reason why Ansar Allah has not shut off Bab el-Mandeb to the American forces is not because Iran is so kind and so restrained or whatever, but it's mostly because they want to keep their stockpiles ready for Iran to go up the escalation ladder. Because as it stands currently, Iran can't easily ship weapons and missiles to the Houthis. So the Houthis have stockpiles, but that's a card that they're not going to play until America forces their hand. And America must know this. There's no way America doesn't know this, right? Like, that's part of the reason why they're not going back into straight conflict here. According to their source, the memorandum includes, anyway, this is Ali Hashem describing what the issues are on the American side and what they are slow rolling, right? According to the source, the memorandum includes the Lebanon ceasefire framework, but Israel is reportedly uncomfortable with the arrangement and is pushing Washington to include language allowing it to carry out military operations in Lebanon under the justification of responding to any threat. Iran is rejecting that formulation and insisting on a sustainable and lasting ceasefire. Tehran has informed all mediators, including Pakistan, that it will not sign the memorandum unless all clauses are fully agreed and guaranteed. Pakistan reportedly suggested moving forward with agreed sections while postponing contentious points, but Iran rejected that approach, insisting the disputed clauses are fundamental and non-negotiable. The overall picture suggests Tehran increasingly views Washington as backing away from earlier understandings reached through mediators. Benjamin Netanyahu, Big Yahoo, also chimed in. I spoke last night with President real Donald Trump about the memorandum of understanding to reopen the Straits of Hormuz and the upcoming negotiations towards a final agreement with Iran's nuclear program. I express my deep appreciation to President Trump for his unwavering commitment to Israel's security, including during Operation Roaring Lion and Epic Fury, when American and Israeli forces fought shoulder to shoulder against the Iranian threat. President Trump and I agreed that any final agreement with Iran must eliminate nuclear danger. That means dismantling... Oh, God, look at this. Yeah. President Trump also reaffirmed Israel's right to defend itself against threats at every front, including Lebanon. The partnership between us and our two countries has been proven on the battlefield and has never been stronger. My policy, like President Trump's, remains unchanged. Iran will not have any nuclear weapons. I am Tel Aviv unimpressed. Okay, Dennis Citrinowicz from the Atlantic Council reports off of Phil Gordon's take. Okay. Phil Gordon says the fact that so many proponents of the Iran war are criticizing Trump's looming deal is less an indictment of the deal than it is of the war. It means they can't defend the results of the policy they advocated for so long, so are reduced to claiming that the victory would have been around the corner if only Trump had stayed the course, which only they seem to believe. Trump doesn't even believe that. They are right that the deal will leave the U.S. worse off than before the war, but fail to recognize, or at least refuse to admit, that the mistake was the war and not the deal. Danny also works off Atlantic Council, saying, it is also important to acknowledge that there are people whose entire careers depend on the continuation of the confrontation with Iran. Admitting that this strategy has failed would inevitably force a reckoning, not only with the collapse of a long-held policy concept, but also with the fact that their own professional future may suddenly become uncertain. Important to note. That is why many of them will continue arguing that just a little more pressure would have worked. That there's always one more idea to topple the regime, that Iran is supposedly on the verge of economic collapse, that its oil infrastructure is about to fail, that one more strike, one more round of sanctions, one more covert campaign will finally break the system. But these arguments avoid the central lesson that should already be obvious. There is no purely kinetic solution to the problem called Iran. Everyone understands this reality except for Israel. And Israel is doing everything it can with the unprecedented amount of access and influence it has with the Trump administration, with the Trump regime, to sully this deal that will allow the United States to exit this quagmire once and fucking for all. And then go back to basics to lick their fucking wounds, but they won't do it. Anyway, let's continue.
Said Iran would continue to manage the strait, calling that its legal right.
We are ready to assure the world that we're not seeking nuclear weapons. We're not seeking instability in the region. The source of the instability in the region is Israel. Certainly, we and those participating in the negotiations will in no way compromise on the country's dignity and honor.
Within the flux of changing US war aims, preventing Iran from gaining a nuclear weapon has perhaps been the most constant. They committed to just that under the JCPOA, the nuclear deal President Trump withdrew from in 2018. Key to a final deal, the fate of Iran's current stockpile of highly enriched uranium, in Trump's terminology, the nuclear dust that he insists be removed from the country. Iran reported to have given a verbal commitment on the scope of its potential concessions during 60 days of talks to come. In the meantime, US forces would remain in the region, signaling their readiness to restart the war, the president perhaps trying to signal his on his Truth Social platform today. But if that's to be his leverage, Tehran well aware that Trump will be 60 days closer to November's midterm elections, raising the cost of restarting an already unpopular war. His chief economic advisor already selling the upside.
I'll let the president decide on whether he thinks the deal is ready to go this week or not. But the bottom line is once the straits are open, then the tankers are going to go back and they're going to refill the refineries almost right away.
Another man facing elections this year, Benjamin Netanyahu, for whom the outcome of a war he's so long campaigned for is even more critical. Today, he posted on X that he and President Trump agreed that any final agreement with Iran must eliminate the nuclear danger, including removing its enriched nuclear material from its territory. President Trump also reaffirmed Israel's right.
When is Molly Crabapple coming out? I'm trying to get the bund in so they can do promo. Oh my God. Later, okay? Like around 7 p.m., 6:30 to 7 p.m. Chat, Fox News is talking about the Islamists and Marxists as we speak, killing myself. They're so dumb.
To defend itself against threats on every front, including Lebanon. Tehran, though, understood to be insisting that any deal with the US would also immediately end the fighting in Lebanon. Just one point among several on which, for all the talk of imminent agreement, key differences remain.
Well, joining me now live from Houston, Texas, is Behnam Ben Tablu, a senior director of the Iran program at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Thank you so much for joining us. Just what do you make of what has happened over the last 20 years?
It's awesome. They were like, hey, we just wanted to have an agent of Israel that nonetheless works in the American security apparatus, but is genuinely, as I've described with great detail, an agent of the Israeli security apparatus, an agent of the Israeli foreign policy apparatus. This is not an American citizen speaking for American foreign policy. This is a direct Israeli cutout, okay? Just remember that whenever we talk about Foundation for Defending Democracy.
4 hours. We've had Donald Trump saying that a deal was largely negotiated. Then a few hours ago, he's telling his diplomats not to rush. What's going on?
Well, it's a pleasure to be with you. Both of these things can be true at the same time, but the boundaries or the distance of the difference is actually considerably less than before. If you remember, the 50-50 between what Donald Trump used to say versus what would happen would be either a deal or a war, and now it's either a deal soon or a deal later. So certainly things are moving in a direction that the president wants, which is some sort of a diplomatic resolution to this crisis. The question really is, what is the substance of that diplomatic resolution? Here in the States, they're calling it a memorandum of understanding. It's not officially agreed to, and because of that, nail-biter-led process till we actually get this thing across the finish line. It reminds me of a line from the 2015 Iran nuclear negotiations in a deal which the president then opposed. And the line or the mantra about those talks was, nothing is agreed until everything is agreed. And I think we're quite literally living that out today in the headlines.
And as you say, it's being reported that there's not much detail at all. But what do you think are the sticking points that will still remain in these negotiations? The Strait, for example?
Well, there's the Strait, but there's also phasing over the Strait, whether the Iranians pull back and allow for a demining mission immediately, or a counter-mining and minesweeping mission immediately, and who is composed of that minesweeping mission? Is it just the U.S.? Is it the U.S.?
I'm sorry. I never thought I would see the day where Jon Favreau has fallen on such hardship and such hard times that he decided to join the Israeli think tank Foundation for Defending Democracy. I mean, this guy is a fantastic director, right? Like, he's great. He was in Marvel. I mean, he directed Marvel movies and was also an actor. How did you fall off so hard that you are now working for a Foundation for Defending Democracy? What the fuck?
And its international partners. These are some of the more minor or finer sticking points, because it
doesn't look like him at all. This doesn't look like Jon Favreau. Are you serious? He made Chef, chatter. He looks like skinny Jon Favreau. Dude, literally. Okay, here. I rest my case. Barely Babes. Put glasses on him. It's the same guy. It looks like a mixture of him and John Kiriakou.
To be that both sides have agreed in principle, reportedly, to trade leverage for leverage in the Strait of Hormuz, the Iranians pulling back, the Americans pulling back the blockade, and then trying to buy time or create political space for 30 to 60 days of nuclear negotiations. The Americans are saying the Iranians have...
You're insane. I'm unsubscribing. Okay, please don't unsubscribe, especially right now. This is if there's one moment where you should subscribe to the HasanAbi broadcast, it's literally right now, okay? I'm definitely going to need it. So please do not unsubscribe. This is the one instance where I need more subscriptions, not less, okay? I am... anyway, the left is eating itself online, and it's so incredibly depressing. Is the solution just ignoring it and going outside? Yes, it always is. Luigi's Fade. Thank you. Bye Moon. Thank you for the 5 gifted. The People's Broadcasting Service is under attack by the federal government. Okay? Please subscribe to the Piker Broadcasting Service, PBS, the People's Broadcasting Service.
Promised to give up the highly enriched uranium. Some more recent reports talk about a total inventory of enriched uranium. So that includes the low enriched as well, not just the 60% and even the 20%. The Iranians have pushed back on this selectively in their press. Conversely, the Iranians, in 2 semi-official hardline media outlets today, have been pouring cold water over the administration's understandings over sanctions relief and how quickly, if at all, they can get the frozen assets. So this thing is still not at all near done, despite the hype in the news cycle yesterday.
Sure. And what about Lebanon in all of this? Netanyahu wants freedom to be able to attack Hezbollah targets in Lebanon. Iran wants military action against their allies to be stopped. Can that gap be closed in these negotiations, do you think?
Well, I do think this is on the docket, shall we say. You know, it was Iranian pressure last time. I know I have some friends and colleagues in Washington who disagree with me, but it was Iranian pressure last time that got the Lebanese issue with Hezbollah on the docket. That led to the U.S. and the Israelis flipping the script on Hezbollah and on Iran and trying to push for some kind of meeting, even a ambassadorial meeting between the Israelis and the Lebanese in Washington, hosted by Marco Rubio. So sure, the Iranians will push for that again. I do think the Trump administration will want to connect the fronts, connect the dots between the various fronts of fighting. What that will achieve, I'm not quite sure, especially if a ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah still allows
just
Israel
finally,
to
can
go
I just
back in.
ask, what's your sense of how long this will take?
Well, I think it could come as early as this week if there is an agreement. But if not, again, the U.S. should be comfortable holding the line on the blockade. This is the single greatest non-kinetic source of leverage against the Islamic Republic. The CENTCOM coalition has intercepted over 100 vessels going to and from Iran's ports. If the U.S. wants to get into tough negotiations with this regime over things that have been very difficult to tackle before, I don't know how it'll do so without this blockade.
Ben and Ben Tableau, thank you very much for joining us and for your time today. Thank you. Appreciated.
Thank you.
To Cuba, where the U.S. recent deployment of an aircraft carrier in the Caribbean and indictment of Raul Castro are fueling fears that Washington may be preparing for possible military action against the island. In response, Havana has called the...
It's so crazy that they're like, our hands are in already like we're already in the swamp, deep in the cut with Iran. And we're trying to pack that up so we can hastily go over to Cuba. What the fuck's wrong with us, dude? Seriously. It doesn't make any sense. It's just such a strange thing to do. Like, there are a million problems in the United States of America, and this is what this admin is focused on. This is what this admin wants to advance. Cuba is even dumber than Venezuela, because at least with Venezuela, there's like, the world's largest known natural reserve of oil, right? So at least with Venezuela, there is like some kind of immediate material reason. You could even pair that up with what we're doing in the Gulf as a long-term project to make the rest of the world, including China, more dependent on U.S. oil shipments, so that America's leverage against China and every other world power trying to become a regional power or maybe a competitive superpower, like these growing peer adversary and near peer adversaries, America might want to have leverage over them, right? Either as a market competitor with Russia or as a sole provider of oil with China. That's not to be, right? That could be in the cards in the future, and the actions in the Gulf, if it was successful, would play a role in that, right? However, the Cuba thing doesn't make any sense whatsoever. It's just like advancing boomer grievances. Boomer grievances paired up with Trump's investment into finding an easy W here, okay? He wants something to hold on to. He recognizes he lost in Iran and it was embarrassing. So he wants to regain the confidence, both within his base, for those who even care about this kind of thing. And I think with Cuba, not many do. Not many know about it. And amongst those who do, there's a very tiny number of people, Miami Cubans specifically, that want this to happen. But outside of that, there isn't really a lot of appetite to fucking wage war against Cuba, right? There is no strategic purpose, even indecent strategic purpose, to pursuing Cuba militarily. If you wanted to liberalize the Cuban markets, there's a way to do that. It's through negotiations. I know for a fact that they are willing to do this because they have done this with Barack Obama in the past, ironically enough. And Jason Hickel reports on this, and he's right, as always. Love Jason Hickel. Israel massacred 6 medics in Lebanon today. This was 2 days ago. But Western media didn't cover it because they're too busy trying to manufacture consent for an illegal U.S. invasion of Cuba. Also, Ben Rhodes has some choice words on Iran, but let's move on from that. And let's get to Cuba.
Recent developments a pretext for a U.S. invasion and has even circulated a family guide for protection against military aggression to its citizens. Earlier, I spoke to our Havana correspondent, Ed Augustine, who explained the tensions in Cuba at the moment amid increased U.S. military pressure on the island. Take a listen.
It's kind of the oldest joke going in Cuba when the Americans come, right? Because the government's been talking about it for literally 2/3 of a century.
It's Ed Augustine. That's my friend. He's a wonderful guy. One of the brave and resilient reporters that are stationed in Havana still. that does the tireless and oftentimes thankless work of, working on the ground and getting the rest of the world to know what's up, know what's taking place in Havana, in Cuba.
And a lot of people here have traditionally seen it as a bit of a pretext, a bit of, we've heard that one before. What's changed in the last week or so is that a lot of the population, even people that don't really tune into politics too much, are now taking this seriously. The crucial inflection point was on Wednesday when the United States Department of Justice indicted Raul Castro. Raul Castro is still the most powerful political figure in the country. And the Cuban government points out that there was an indictment, or there were claims by the Department of Justice prior to the abduction of Nicolas Maduro that he was a narco-terrorist. And so it was, in their view, a pretext to...
This is what's so crazy is like, I tried to explain to people, like, a country that can violate all norms and all international law and decide to set up a sham trial for Nicolas Maduro, the head of a sovereign state, right, can just as easily do this to its own citizens. And now we're seeing that. A lot of Americans don't understand, where they're like, oh, who cares? Like, it's fucking, this guy's a tyrant, he's a dictator, he's cruel, blah, 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 all this shit. Like, none of that matters. If that was the case, then there's a way to advance that, okay? There's a way to file your grievances. There's a way to engage diplomatically. There's a way to do this kind of stuff. But America doesn't do that. America is a rogue state. So what happens when the architect of Western-backed international rule-based order behaves like a rogue state? Well, we're living through it currently. Nah, we shouldn't have done that in the first place. No, I know. I'm not saying it was appropriate for this administration to do any of that. I'm just simply trying to explain to Americans who weren't paying attention or were paying attention and were like, well, the media told me Maduro's a bad guy, so isn't this a good thing overall? My warning to them was, if we're doing that to the head of a sovereign state, what makes you think that the administration won't do that to you? You're a regular person. I'm a regular person. We're just regular American citizens. They can do that to a whole ass fucking sovereign leader, the head of a state with a fucking standing military. They can easily do that to you, chatter.
To be able to decapitate the Venezuelan government, and we all see now that oil is effectively under US control since then.
And now they're doing it to Cuba.
An interesting note to viewers, a few days after the president of Venezuela was snatched, the Department of Justice recognized that the drug organization that he was supposedly the kingpin of, El Cartel de los Soles, didn't even exist. They said it was more a culture.
Just hours after the U.S. Embassy issued the urgent security alert warning of a potential massive...
Oh, yeah, Russia's been pummeling. Russia's been deploying Oreshniks as well.
Air attack, Russia launching one of the heaviest overnight attacks from the air, sea and land, using hundreds of missiles and drones, including the powerful hypersonic Oreshnik ballistic missile, which is capable of carrying nuclear warheads. Russian President Vladimir Putin claims this type of missile is impossible to intercept. Kyiv's mayor Vitaly Klitschko...
I mean, that's not like a ridiculous claim. It's just reality. U.S. Embassy in Kyiv issues security alert. Russia launching heavy attack on Russia from air, sea, and land. On Russia. Damn. I wouldn't go that far. Good morning, America. Jesus Christ. ABC News already decided Ukraine is Russia. That's a bit crazy. Closer POV. Yeah, here. You want to see this? The fact that he's still up, the fact that he's still standing and is still filming is insane, by the way. Yeah, boy. He just ate that shit. Yeah. The Lukyanivka district of Kiev saw heavy damage with a shopping center office complex taking a direct missile hit.
Saying the capital came under heavy attack and at least 4 people were killed and more than 100 others injured across the country. That number is expected to rise. And this comes after Putin was threatening to retaliate after accusing Ukraine of carrying out a deadly attack on a student dormitory in an occupied part of eastern Ukraine, killing 21 people. Ukraine denies hitting civilian infrastructure. Remember, it was just over a week ago Russia launched the largest sustained drone and missile attack since the war began, hitting energy, water, and transport infrastructure, as well as residential buildings. Putin had suggested the conflict was coming to an end. After last night's attack, Russia's war is far from over. Rhiannon?
Far from over. Lama Hasan, thank you for that.
Everything I'm saying is common sense. We've just...
Oh, my God. I heard he talked shit about me on this, too.
Lost it in Los Angeles.
Spencer Pratt says if he doesn't win mayor of Los Angeles, America's second largest city, is doomed.
4 more years, LA is cooked. Like done, burnt, cooked. Is Karen Bass targeting fire victims who...
Pratt's aggressive social media videos.
Nobody in charge will listen. I will.
Reaching millions around the world.
Resonating is because people have eyeballs.
Some of his supporters see the one-time reality show.
Oh my God. He looks very different. He is MAGA-fied completely. It's actually remarkable how much of a Timu Trump situation it is. I'm going to be honest, dude. There's a lot of outside money backing Spencer Pratt. There's a lot of like national MAGA that wants to get like any kind of W they can. They know Karen Bass is weak. They know there's no like viable, real, solid, reliable alternative. So it's just a very interesting situation, you know? Pratt wins, you finally move to New York. Buddy, I might have to move to whichever federal prison I'm going to. You know what I mean?
Villain as a sort of superhero, including one fan who created this AI video reposted by Pratt.
They know I'm not a politician. They know if they didn't burn my house down, I wouldn't be running for mayor.
Pratt's home was among the almost 7,000 in the Palisades fire last January. LA Mayor Karen Bass was in Ghana.
I can't believe how bad American politics is because, and Tim Dillon is right for what he's about to say here. Spencer Pratt already inked a reality TV deal with Boardwalk Pictures to roll cameras as he runs for mayor. Like, he doesn't give a fuck about anything. And it's crazy that there are enough dumbasses in Los Angeles, it seems, that look at this situation and go, you know, I don't really care. Why not? Like, he is clearly a con man in every way, shape, and form. Trust fund baby, loses all of his money, bankrupts his businesses, sells crystals, is MAGA, loves Alex Jones, pro-ICE, pro-Trump. What are we doing? Los Angeles has like, what, 10% support for Trump at this point? And they have a higher percentage for Spencer Pratt, who is a worse version of Donald Trump, a watered-down version of Donald Trump, who will have direct impact on your lives.
At the time, despite warnings about fire weather conditions for days before the blaze. In my interview with Mayor Bass, she claimed she didn't know about the extent of the warnings and wished she never made the trip.
When I talked to the chief when I got home, basically the response was, well, we always have Santa Ana winds. We didn't anticipate them being this bad.
At least 12 people during the Palisades fire, according to city officials.
You cannot just move on and act like, oh, I was in Ghana, oopsie daisies. Like, no, you should have resigned. You should have admitted to your failures. This is where Mayor Bass lives. You notice something?
In a recent ad, Pratt visited Bass's official residence, and then his burned.
This is where I live. They let my home burn down.
But TMZ reports that Pratt hasn't ever lived in that Airstream behind him, and often stays at the pricey Hotel Bel Air, or at a family home in Santa Barbara County.
I don't live at the Hotel Bel Air, and I don't live in Santa Barbara. I live in that dirt, and that's my fight. take a minute to run for mayor. I'll tell you how I became the prince of a town called Bel Air.
Spencer mocked the TMZ story in a parody of Will Smith's Fresh Prince of Bel Air opening theme.
It's so ridiculous that anyone is focusing on whether my Airstream is parked in my dirt lot or I drive it to the Hotel Bel Air.
TMZ also reported that he signed a deal to film a reality show with his family about his political run.
Like if I had a Netflix show, it wouldn't be getting broken by Harvey Levin. I would have made my own videos.
Pratt says as LA mayor, he'd try to fight future fires faster.
Yeah, he's denying it. I definitely don't believe it. I definitely believe that he has inked the deal. Remember when Spencer Pratt leaked photos of an intoxicated Mary-Kate Olsen for a few bucks? Once a scumbag, always a scumbag. Okay, that's not a few bucks. That's $50,000. That's a lot of few bucks. A lot of the tepid neoliberalism and the centrism has obviously opened up for the first time ever a unique opportunity for the left to have these insurgent campaigns and win, right? But also, we're not the only ones who are recognizing how weak the Democrats are. Unfortunately, right-wing populists are also trying to take advantage of that weakness. And it's created this like very unstable environment where if there isn't a strong contender on the left that everyone can unite behind, you have people like Spencer Pratt taking advantage of that opportunity.
Installing more water drop sites for firefighting aircraft.
We put 20 dip sites around these communities because right now, if we have these dip sites, they hit the water, boom, they hit the water, and then we also connect pools.
In terms of LA's homelessness crisis, he vows to enforce the laws already on the books.
This isn't happening in Beverly Hills. You can go have dinner there.
Why do you think that is?
Because they enforce their laws.
Yeah. Pratt says many on the street are addicted to drugs. He'd create a new place to take.
Oh, yeah, by the way, YIMBYism, NIMBYism, whatever, okay? The reality of the matter is there is a third alternative worse than both of those different ideologies in terms of how we must build new housing units. And that is, of course, people who claim that people are homeless not because they're priced out of the housing market, but because they're drug addicts and they're mentally ill and they kind of deserved it. And that, unfortunately, is the Spencer Pratt method. And of course, that's the one that's getting a lot of attention.
Take them, calling it treatment and recovery first.
It's time to radically go in a new direction with mandatory treatment. And it's going to be incredible. This isn't like a jail. This is a place where people are going to go and have a chance to come back in society.
Pratt says his center would include treatment, workforce training, and be located on federal land outside of Los Angeles.
It's going to be somewhere where people will go and they go, thank God for Spencer. This is the greatest thing in the United States of America. Everyone needs to copy this model.
Who pays for that?
I have literal billionaires. I've met with 30 of them lined up. Not to mention my
They're
plan.
going to pay for it themselves.
They are ready to go.
Privately funded.
It doesn't need to be all privately funded.
But you know there's going to be all sorts of pushback. There's going to be people on the city council that pushes back. There's going to be folks that are homeless advocates that are pushing back.
You know the bigger system that's going to push back even harder? The communities that are being destroyed, being endangered by this giant system.
So where would Spencer and his family live if he wins? Getty House in Hancock Park has been the official residence of the LA mayor since 1977.
Would you live at the mayor's home, the residence in Hancock Park?
Absolutely not, because we have a housing bed issue. So I'm going to use all the beds in that mansion for these single mothers that we keep hearing about that are living on the street.
And where would you live?
I will be at where they are very upset that I'm not at every night in the Palisades.
Okay.
But I need a fence. We need to connect the water.
Pratt has been sharing out AI-generated videos created by his fans on his own social media.
What is the thought process for you in terms of what you share out and what you don't share out?
The amount of things that I'm getting tagged in a day, like I will, if somebody says, vote for Spencer Pratt, he'll say, that's a repost. You know, obviously I could vet things more.
One AI video shows residents throwing tomatoes at Bass.
It is absolutely 150% fiction. But what's worrying me now is that his social media is now taking on a
AI famously popular in Hollywood right now. Dude, I know everyone in town hates this shit, but honestly, I'm telling you, man, people are that fed up and that dumb. I think Karen Bass likes a matchup between her and Spencer Pratt. Karen Bass, on the other hand, does not like a matchup between her and even Nithya, which I think she still has a shot at defeating Nithya as well, because Nithya, unfortunately, is also uniquely weak on rhetoric. There's she hasn't received support from her own organization, DSA-LA, to the same degree that's necessary to like push her over the edge. I'm being very sober in my assessment here. I'm being very honest. But Nithya would present a challenge to Karen Bass, whereas Spencer Pratt also represents a challenge to Karen Bass, but she's just relying on the don't vote for Trump voters in Los Angeles if she matches up against Nithya, or matches up against Spencer Pratt rather than Nithya Raman.
Violent terms, which is the funniest thing I've ever heard coming from the lady who allowed 12 people to burn alive, and she's worrying about AI.
So can Spencer Pratt actually win as mayor of Los Angeles? Clearly, there are signs of support for him all over Pacific Palisades. The challenge is, Palisades is a relatively small part of the massive city of Los Angeles. Nearly 4 million residents, and an estimated 2/3 of them. Pratt is a registered Republican.
In LA city elections, a candidate's political party is not listed on the ballot. But 4 years ago, Bass and her allies ran countless ads on TV and social media reminding voters of her opponent, Rick Caruso's Republican past. It worked. Bass won that election by nearly 10 points.
Do you fear that they're going to do that same thing to you? That there's going to be a massive onslaught of money to tell everybody that you're a Republican?
They could do skywriting all day long. I'm about to do skywriting, so I got a Buick at 9. So they can do anything they want. Everyone that supports me is a Democrat. Democrats do not want naked drug addicts in front of their kids at the park and school, period.
Why are you a Republican?
Well, you want to...
I mean, he's anything and everything that suits his purpose. What is this? Hasan Piker's leftist rivals are already throwing him under the bus. I bet these guys DM. I'm completely at the disposal of the Trump administration if any more information on Marxist communist Hasan Piker is needed. Good point. I hate it when my rivals throw me under the bus. That is so unexpected of rivals. He's memeing? Oh, dude, he's memeing? Was he memeing when he was taking credit literally yesterday for all of the anti-Graham Plattner rhetoric and all of the anti-Hasan rhetoric that's been the talk of the town, and at the heart of this discourse is apparently bad empanada? No, he's just a fucking narcissistic weirdo, dude. I mean, yeah, he's memeing right there, but he doesn't give a shit about anything. He, like, a lot of people ironically think that he is this sincere revolutionary, when in fact, he does less than even I do, and is unbelievably toxic, and also seemingly a slop merchant himself. He got a little taste of that drama culture, and he leaned into it pretty heavily. He went from doing videos about how easy it is to grift, to say like fuck Hasan, to doing that leftistly, and many people actually fell for it. There are decent amounts of people in this community that literally fucking fell for it. He's become the same as Sex Pestany. No discernible worldview, just singular focus on improving his bottom line. He's lost his damn mind. Yeah, it doesn't even deserve my addressing it at all. Let's be real. He's like desperate. He's so desperate, begging Noah to have him on the fucking fundraising stream. Please have me on. He derails every conversation to whatever his like personal project is. And he does ironically use, and this is perhaps like the most disgusting element, he uses the genocide of the Palestinians to make it seem like he's actually tackling the issue from a moral perspective. But his hyper focus clearly betrays how important this issue is to everyone, including himself. Anyway, he literally went from, if Hasan was a sincere issue, if Hasan was like a real, he went from making this video, Hasan Piker obsession is not normal, please seek help, 10 months ago, to literally leaning into that obsession. And then his fan base is, marginal for the most part. But instead of like trying to advance the cause of Palestinians, instead of advancing anti-Zionism, many in his community think that like the best possible way to do it is like direct hatred at those he has put in his crosshairs. Sometimes those who he puts in his crosshairs are actually Zionists. In many instances, they used to be liberal Zionists and Zionists alike, ultra Zionists to liberal Zionists. Now he's decided there's maybe a better market to carve out a niche for himself, which is to go after other critics of Israel, more prominent critics of Israel than he, and you know, try to you know, eat away at that market share in his mind, I guess. I don't think about it in these terms, but it's very clear he does. It's very strange. So yeah, I think he is, you know, memeing. But if he hadn't fallen off the fucking deep end, I think this would probably be a turning point for him, where he would say, yeah, honestly, this is a bridge too far. It's very clear that, you know, Trump is prosecuting political dissidents and doing it on the basis of like internationalism, like any sort of real physical commitment to helping those who are in the crosshairs of American imperialism is met with this level of you know, federal government scrutiny. This is very clearly the American empire reinforcing its cruelty not only upon people unfortunate enough to be born in the periphery, but also even people who are trying to support them in some way, shape, or form. But instead of doing that, because he's not like in any way, shape, or form committed to anything, just as he spent months and months leading up to the Cuba aid convoy, disparaging it over and over again, he has redoubled his efforts in memeing about how Donald Trump is doing the right thing.
Break some news here?
Sure.
Anyway. It's in my, you know, I've told this before, and this is the only time I've ever said this, so this is breaking news. Everyone's gonna freak out. When I was a hated reality star, I got so many death threats. I had so much security and police, and what did they tell me to do? Get a gun. This is real. I know people don't like guns, but LA was dangerous if you're hated, so I got a gun. My wife got a gun. And then we needed CCWs.
A CCW is a legal permit to carry a concealed weapon in California.
The only people that supported a CCW was the Republican. That was what I aligned with, my safety, my personal safety, my family's safety. I know people don't like guns, but when people are threatening your life and your own security is telling you you need to have home protection, train to, it's not like just I went to the, you know, go through the proper steps. That was my, that's it.
And that was it. And you felt like that party was more pro Second Amendment.
And I know that's a very hot button, but here's the thing. I'm also going to be the mayor that puts LAPD in front of every school to make schools safe from guns.
Who is your political role model?
Jesus Christ.
I mean, that's what.
Yeah, he was a politician. He had to, you know, he had to go in and.
Are there any modern?
Dude, he is farming so fucking hard. It's crazy. Oh my Lord. My political role model is Jesus Christ is wild, okay? He does not give a fuck about any of this stuff. It's so transparent. It is crazy. God, he's not even that good at being a crook, and yet people eat it up.
Politicians that you're especially studying or drawn to?
No, I'm not a politician. I want to be a fighter for the people.
But you've mentioned, though, that...
Obama, I'm most similar to Obama.
What is one word that separates you from your competitors?
Truth.
And he says the Obama comparison because they're both community advocates. So we sat with Pratt for nearly an hour. I encourage you, check out the full, unedited conversation